Welcome to the Jew York Times. On today's episode, we solve society.
All of it.
That is right. It is the anti-debate episode of the Jew York Times. This idea kind of came along because my frustration over the past couple of weeks, things have been very tense in New York specifically because of the mayoral election or the Democratic mayoral primary that was happening. During this, I'm not a Zohran guy, very open about that, and we're going to talk about that on the podcast. My issue with this is that anytime that there was a conversation that was brought up about him, it was the worst, loudest people who were not interested in finding a meaningful resolution that were in charge of the debate. Mm-hmm. For instance, when he gets asked, are you going to Israel? That's crazy. That is not what
they asked every candidate.
Which is crazy.
Where they were going to be going. And first, and so he said, "I'm going to stay in New York because I'm running for the office to run New York." And then everybody else who said Israel was like, proof.
But the thing was, it was the reason the question was even asked. I'm like, why are we asking this question? Although I will say, I do love the guy who was like, the Bahamas.
Yeah.
I thought
he
was
the Bahamas.
Exactly, but that was great.
Like,
I like that guy.
Home.
I think that Cuomo should have been like, you know what, Jersey Shore. That's where I am going. Anyways, so this is the problem, is that I think that there was never an earnest attempt at having a conversation about actual issues that had been brought up during this during this election cycle. So I put out onto my Instagram asking people who, if anybody, I'm pretty open with my views. Some people don't like them. Some people do like them. Yep. But I like to have an actual conversation about this stuff.
For the record, you asked for somebody to argue with you, not to have a conversation.
To argue. Wait, no, I thought peacefully something. What exactly did I say?
I think you said you were looking for somebody who was passionate and cared about peace to argue with.
To argue without going negative. I think was the biggest issue here.
So that's just the conversation?
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Listen, this is going to get 3 views, and then that'll be how it views. And then, you know what? We learned that next time we got to come in here and start calling each other stuff. Yeah. Anyways, here's why Bibi Netanyahu should be mayor. Is that the seltzer really took you with that one?
I wasn't doing that.
Yeah. Okay, so
here's why a war criminal should be mayor of the city.
And this is actually a thing that I think that we can agree on here, is that we both hate Bibi Netanyahu. Mm-hmm.
I hate all war criminals equally.
Look at that. Yeah. But let's talk about him. Let's be direct about this. We're having a conversation about Bibi. I despise Bibi. I think that Bibi is trying to keep this war going as long as possible. I think that there's a huge conflict of interest that the guy in charge of the war is also trying to keep the war going, because if he leaves, then he can go to prison. Yep. I think that there is a big issue with a lot of the leaders who have a stake or who have some say in how this is going, that they're wanting to extend it for their own personal reasons. And we can get into all of that stuff. But I want to I want to just start and get a base thing that I think that we both agree on here.
Okay.
You ready for it? Mm-hmm. We both agree on a ceasefire and hostages being released. Can we get just base out there?
Yep.
And I say this because I can't speak for your side is the wrong way to put this, but people that you associate with or whatever would maybe have some uncomfortability with the hostage releasing. And I say that because I know that my side...
I'm not uncomfortable with the hostage.
No, I know. But I'm saying it's controversial to talk about, to just say it. Because whenever I say ceasefire, hostage release stuff, it is always brought back with yes, we're for the hostage release, we're all for that stuff. Well, without Hamas surrendering, is there a yada, yada, yada. It's just, and there isn't a lot of release a hostage talk that is brought up at these protests and stuff like that. So I do think that is important to have this base reality, because I think this is something that a lot of people think doesn't exist. A lot of people think that everyone is either on one side of this or the other side of this, and that's just not true.
When you say hostages, are you only talking about Israeli hostages in Gaza, or are you also talking about Palestinian hostages?
Totally. In fact, I have family in Israel. I lived in Israel for a minute, after high school for a year. Not
Where
in any.
What city?
It was in Beit Shemesh. I was at an all-boys yeshiva outside of Beit Shemesh.
Was that in the Negev?
No. God, no. That place is effing hot. Okay, no. This is, I would say, 30 minutes outside of Jerusalem area, somewhere in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Yeah. Nice. Mm-hmm. Family lives out there, so I have a connection to Israel and stuff. I have been talking about the West Bank for fucking years. Yeah. The West Bank is a disaster, and it's a disaster Biden let it be a disaster. Bush let it be. Everyone's fucking let it be a disaster.
They're partly responsible for that disaster.
Oh, totally. They never reined any of it in. They 100%. And I am very open about this. So when you talk about like prisoners and hostages and stuff like that, which, you know, calling them
children
hostages,
held without any trials.
Totally.
Some of them without even accusations. Children being held in prison for, in some cases, a decade.
Yeah. You're 100% right. The over-policing.
If they get released.
The over-policing was an issue. It was a fucking issue. Bibi had a blank check to go out. No one, when Biden was president, over and over, my biggest concern was that he was never reining Netanyahu in, and all this was leading to was a more destabilized West Bank, and before Gaza even became...
At least you're saying West Bank, man. You can't even believe how many people won't even say that.
Sorry, I mean Judea.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you're 100% right. This is the terminology that kind of prevents people from... So,
or like how far the overridden window's been pushed.
Yeah. But here's my question, though. Even just saying the hostages thing, it feels like, yes, the hostages, you know, we call it prisoners hostages. I sometimes, and this is just my take on some stuff, I don't like to argue on specific terminology of stuff that I agree is just bad. Mm-hmm. Like, I do think that people get bogged down in like, is it a genocide? Is it not a genocide? Semantics. Is it hostage? It's semantics. It doesn't make a difference. It's wrong. Like, what's wrong is wrong here. So we talk about like prisoners, hostage, whatever, in prison, I totally get that. But is there not like is it not like a little bit uncomfortable, or like, do I have an ability to be like, hey, it's a little bit kind of unfair that like I'm just talking about the hostages here and it's an immediate like all lives mattering of this in some way? That's how it feels to me a little bit. And like, does that like resonate? Do I have a right to feel that?
It resonates. Yeah. It resonates. I would say it's how Palestinians that I've spoken to feel for a long time about just trying to get to the basics of what their grievances are. Yeah. Where they feel like they're constantly being told to, well, you have to contextualize it with Arafat, and you have to contextualize it with XYZ bombing, as if they're being told that their grief actually belongs to them and them only, and therefore they're not allowed to feel bad for it because it's partly their fault. And I feel like what you're saying now is relatable because that's what Palestinians, I think, have been feeling for decades, totally. Going all the way back to the very, very, very beginning. So I think that's something that Israelis are beginning to experience because they want people to understand, like, no. What's happening is bad. These people have been taken from, some cases, their homes, other cases from their military bases or installations, and dragged into Gaza violently. And we want people to pay attention to their cause. And then you might hear, oh, well, actually, this is the context for it. This is what's, I think, been plaguing the conversation on the Palestinian side for generations. Yeah. This is something that my parents have experience with. They're trying to say, killing kids is bad. And then somebody on the other side saying, no. What about the context of these kids being killed? So
it's the problem with the entire conversation.
That's where I think we can overlap.
I super agree with that. I think that what you brought up is such a specific shared opposite sides of the same coin issue here, where there's legitimate gripes and concerns that are brought up, and then people overextend, they overpush the argument, and they don't let you, so they say something crazy that doesn't let you go back to like the base of it, when there's like, you know, there's extenuating crazy circumstances out there. There's crazy, you know, parts to this on every side to this. And it's like, the second you want to talk about like a very tiny little relatable section of it, it's like all of the stuff is kind of, you know, kind
You're
of
missing the context.
Yeah. Why? Okay. So when I think that's like, so the first part of this I wanted to get to was just the fact that we agree on this base thing here. The next part of this is that when we started to have the conversation about coming over here, I asked you to like, you know, come up with any prompts or stuff like that, just based on the stuff that I'd been saying online to, you know, I guess the journalistic thing or the podcast worthy thing here would be to just explain my issues with Zohran.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first thing is that I did have him ranked at one point. I get this. I like his kooky shit. I'm like into it. Like I do the food deserts thing. I think everyone's acting like that's crazy. That is not crazy. If you're from this area, you know that there are some areas where there's just no ShopRites and anything. Food desert, you know, ShopRites.
And I don't think he talked about like removing Whole Foods and then replacing it with something else.
No.
I think he's just trying to introduce grocery stores that are subsidized by taxpayers in order to inject food accessibility into places where there isn't any.
It's almost like everything he says is purposely exaggerated for negative, and the
would have to agree.
the Gristidis, whoever like the supermarket families are over here, I'm sure that they have like a vested interest in keeping, this thing out there. Free
Price is
buses,
high.
sure. Free bus is great. Can he do the rent freeze? Can he do, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I think that a lot of people
Neither am
I think a lot of people are posturing as if they have any idea. A lot of the stuff
It's emotion.
Yeah. But the stuff that does become an issue for me is I don't care how he feels about Israel. He can hate Israel all he wants, and I don't think that he hates Israel, but he could, because it doesn't make a difference to me. It comes to the safety of Jews in New York, right? And the unfortunate reality is that over the past couple of years, 650-ish days since October 7th, I think we can all admit that was like a sparking event for a response in America that's been kind of heightened and tense. In him not specifically calling out anti-Semitism that has come from anti-Israel spaces, it does kind of like ring alarm bells. And then him not going out there and saying like being against like the Intifada language, even though there was like a weird update yesterday that did you hear about that update at all?
Be specific, yeah.
He like was at they had some sort of like billionaire meeting or something, and he went out there. He said he would discourage the term. To me, I thought that was a weird. Like I'm like, go outside and like say that to. We can't even quote him because I don't know. The quote was like from an article that was quoting, a quote.
Somebody who was there.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, what I'm about to say may completely change, but I will say that like to this point, him being okay with not pushing back against the Intifada language is an issue. The lack of calling out, just Student Justice Palestine, he was one of the people that had started his personal chapter. And while I don't think that he has to apologize for that, I do think that just like leads to him having to take just a clearer stance on this kind of stuff. And that is like where I kind of stand on him in general. I wanted to have a conversation with someone that is on, the Zohran side of things to talk about that. But that's what I'm kind of feeling. Anyways, let's go Mets, baby.
Okay, I have two things that I just wrote down. You said that there was like anti-Semitism coming out of these like pro-Palestinian spaces. Are you talking about the encampments?
Yes, and I want to make a big point here. Big point. Not most protesters, totally fine, wanted actual issues for the Palestinians to be talked about. Totally. Mm-hmm. There is a certain percentage of them, and it happens to be that this percentage, for whatever reason, were in charge or at least had a big say in the tone and how the conduct of these spaces had happened. Yeah.
So leaders within the movement and the encampments were responsible for the tone, and you would identify some of that tone as being unwelcoming for Jewish people.
Well, I also say that personally, I work a little bit with like Jewish college kids. I've met people that have been like legitimately stalked, violently attacked. Like this is not like a fake problem that had kind of like popped up. This was like a real problem. My issue was that I just never saw it like actually like they're an effort to kind of tamp it down.
So I was under the impression that many of the leaders in those spaces were themselves Jewish. So like,
and there's a big but with this. Mm-hmm. Those Jews represent a tiny percentage of the global Jewish community. And I want to say that
I feel like I've heard that before. I'm thinking in this particular space where people in leadership are Jewish, and I've interviewed some of them, these Jewish people like for SJP, Students for Justice for Palestine, has some like major Jewish leaders in there. There's also Jewish Forces for Peace. These were not just like people who showed up to support. They were also like leaders and organizers. Jewish Voices for Peace, the student chapter was actually banned on campus. So they banned a Jewish organization from organizing on campus.
The issue is that as much as I don't deny that these people are like Jews, I totally get that. And I do think that there's an issue with people diminishing their Judaism over this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like you can be a Jew and be against it. Like you can have whatever crazy...
Right, they practiced
Judaism
in the encampments.
We can have there's a little bit, there's technical things why I would push back on that, but this isn't the conversation because this is like, halacha is just like Jewish rules. So I wouldn't want to have that conversation with you. I would have that conversation, but I do recognize that
Let's have the halacha, man.
Let's talk about some halacha here, okay? What were we getting to? Okay, so the people... as much as they are Jews, if they don't represent even, Pew, which is like...
No, I just want you to explain to me how a space that you say was hostile to Jewish people was also organized and hosting Jewish people.
Because only 11% of Jews would feel comfortable in that space, and that's not very hot. That's not hot, hospitable.
But if your case is they would not welcome those Jews because of their religious affiliation...
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't welcome those Jews because of
their political affiliation.
No, just because. I'm sorry. It's not. If you are victimizing and demonizing 89% of Jews, then it's wrong. These Jews do not represent any sort of majority of Jews. You can't have these Jews who are in charge. They can call Jewish Voice for Peace. Jewish Voice for Peace, by the way, majority not Jewish. Some of their board members, of course, are Jewish, but on their website, they specify that you do not have to be Jewish in order to join their ranks. It's not asking them to stop protesting for Palestine and stuff like that. It's asking them to make the space just less toxic and less violent towards Jews. So it doesn't matter if they are Jewish or not, because they don't represent even 89% is a huge percentage of Jews that don't vibe with this.
Here's how I feel about it. I feel like of the Jewish people that I've interviewed, the way they explain Zionism as interwoven with their religious upbringing makes their political identity and their political aspirations in a specific region and their attachment to a political mission that was, when it was accepted by atheists of Jewish descent. That, to me, I think, is not the fault of the protesters who are trying to denounce what they think of as a violent ideology.
Yeah, but it is when it becomes violent against, kids in America. There is a line. Do you not think... I guess,
no, I don't think anybody should get hurt and stalked and all beat up and all of that. That's awful.
But do you think that there was, enough of an effort to kind of, curtail that?
I think they were policing their own. And I think in a lot of the videos...
Did they do a good job?
I mean, it's not going to be 100% perfect, right? It's not like these are students we're talking about.
Yeah, but did they do, in your mind, did they do a good enough job?
In my mind?
Yeah.
Well, I can't say because I'm not Jewish. So
okay.
I'm not going to be able to say they did a good enough, you know what I mean? But what I will say is that there was an effort made. There was, I think, a very earnest effort to make the space inclusive of Jewish people. To the point where they had true. Well, I mean, I think, you're asking me what I think. I think that they specifically made a concerted effort to make the place friendly to Jewish people who wanted to practice Judaism in any way that they wanted.
No, wait.
So there was the Sukkot circle, and they would also recite from the Talmud together in circles. This is all videos.
Yeah, but this is not. Okay, now I need to kind of push back on this stuff. That's not.
So you're saying this isn't. Those people don't represent
that the ritualistic stuff that they were doing is not representative of a large group of Jews.
Sure.
It felt. And I don't want to. They can sell. I almost want to remove the ritual stuff.
You're arguing that this place was unwelcoming towards Jews. So if you were right, and if I were to believe you,
not all the way. Wait, let me just say,
if I were to agree with you, I would have to see them say, "Hey, you're Jewish. Get out of here." Which I don't think I saw, especially when people were practicing wearing yarmulkes and doing all of the things.
But here's the thing: if 89% of Jews have a positive association to Israel, this is where we're coming from here.
Which is a political project.
What?
Israel.
Yeah, but that doesn't make a difference in this conversation because we're talking about an 18-year-old kid at
central
Columbia.
To the argument because these people are protesting against a political project.
Yeah, but
and you're saying, wait. A lot of religious people feel very strongly about this political project that you're protesting.
They can protest against it, but when it becomes violent and toxic and doesn't represent any near majority of Jews, then you can't say that this is a Jewish thing. It does not feel like you're saying we're able to continue to do this thing and practice the way that we've been protesting because we've got this Jewish guy or we got a couple of Jewish friends that are making it okay. Because that's how it feels, you know?
I can understand that.
It does feel like this there is a little bit of a tokenizing of the Jews that we agree with. These are the good Jews.
Right.
There's
a lot of Arab Zionists. And I've heard awful things said and written about them.
Here's what I want to say though is that and we can talk about the Zionism thing next. When it comes to being safe and feeling like you have an ability, this is saying that this is a a group that is welcoming of all Jews, like you do have to like recognize that like that's not accurate though. If 89% of Jews do have an attachment to Israel, which is just, it is what it is, and you can agree with it being good or bad, you know, like that's not the conversation here. The conversation is that a large, significant majority of Jews have this attachment. And because of that attachment, they were targeted and they were not able to go into those spaces. So there is no way to say that those spaces were inclusive of Jews. They were inclusive of a very specific
Jews.
They were inclusive. I almost don't even want to use the term Zionist and not Zionist because I think that is going to be used to paint this conversation black or white. Like I think that like labeling something Zionist or anti-Zionist is used as a tool to like diminish like what is being said here.
This is an excellent segue to the second point that I made.
Okay, great.
Because I feel like we kind of reached a stalemate a little bit.
Well, let's agree on the stalemate here. Like let's define the line here.
I think it is impossible to make every single person conceivably comfortable if they're going to be uncomfortable based on their political attachments to a movement that is anti that political movement.
Yeah, but it's not like reversed a little bit where it's like it's not that they are uncomfortable, it's that they are being treated and are therefore uncomfortable.
I haven't seen anything that said like go and target these people.
But that happened though.
It happened, yeah. I think I've seen the videos, and that one video was awful.
There's tons of videos.
Students who, I think it was at Cooper Union, who like sealed themselves in the library, and the kids are like banging on the window. That was fucking scary.
What if I told you that happened several times in several different colleges in America?
I believe you. I think if we're talking about the leadership of these organizations, you're asking me, did they do a good enough job of policing their spaces? I don't know. Do I think that their movement inherently is anti a religious identity? No. I don't think anybody would agree to that. And so I think when you're saying, actually, this is offensive to this religious identity, what you're doing is you're obfuscating the fact that these people were not protesting or objecting to a religious practice.
But can we remove the religion element to it and just like at a base level?
How are we going to?
Because Israel's Israel. There's a lot of atheist Jews out there that have the connection to Israel. Right. If I hated God or I didn't think God existed, I would still have family over there. I would still have that connection towards it. So I think that like removing the religious like attachment to it, there still is a thing where it's like if Israel is this like ethereal thing that exists, like it's out there. Like Israel exists. It's a thing that you can have attachment to. And it just happens to be this group has an attachment to it. Getting religion aside, if that attachment is used as a reason to attack or do whatever to this group, then like it does become a little bit of a problem.
I hear you, and I empathize with that position. I think based on my reporting and based on the people that I know and people that I've spoken to about this specific subject, what I've often heard, which I think is going to be valuable for me to say, I'm not saying my feeling, I'm saying what I've heard a lot from this group. The mere existence of the occupation makes it incumbent on everyone to resist that occupation. Israel has never existed without occupying the Palestinian people. And what does that occupation look like? It means being able to go into anyone's home, shoot them, kill them, or drag their kids and take them to jail. It means restricting them their access to water. It means going into allowing settler terrorists to go into these villages like they've been doing for the past 20 months and mercilessly killing people. They just beat an American to death last week. Yeah. So when you're saying we have to be allowed to be attached to protect this country, what I've heard and what I think is honestly a point that you ought to reckon with is that this country cannot and has not existed without the oppression of an entire ethnicity of people who are often denied that this ethnicity even exists, who often have to suffer through genocidal language and acts of genocide. And, going all the way back to 1948 with the ethnic cleansing and the Nakba, this is what the country of Israel represents to people. And so you have to reckon with the fact that this country is not without sin, is not without there being a moral justification to object to its existence.
But then why take that out on a bunch of kids? Here's the thing, is that there's a lot of what you said that I agree with. There's a lot of it I don't agree with. For instance, like we said before, the West Bank shit. Like, I think that is a good example of something that, like, why am I caught up.
You shouldn't be.
No, but I'm saying, like, so that's the problem here, is that there's no nuance for this. It's like, I am the one that's like, people like me, there's a lot of like liberal Jews out there, you know, who I was about to say like who voted for Kamala, but I'm going to be honest, she fucked you guys over pretty bad. The fact that there were no Palestinians.
I was at
one
the DNC.
of the all-time, when I swear to God.
I want to tell you about a moment that I experienced at the DNC.
I would love to. I just want to say that the second that the DNC was over and it became clear that there was no Palestinian speaker, because I actually thought that they were going to like do like a surprise. Like,
they were told that they were going to get
Crazy.
something until the very end when they
I was
were
like,
actually, you're not.
this reflect, one, this is ethically terrible. Two, this reflects poorly on the Jews. This is like exactly when people talk about an imbalance of power, you are exactly showing it. So I'm like totally with you on a bunch of that stuff. Some of the, you know, the occupation stuff, the Nakba stuff, like we are going to disagree on the realities of that. But there's no way that you really think that like attacking kids in America is going to help that. If anything, it hurts it.
I don't think that.
So then, like, okay,
I think anybody who did anything criminal ought to be persecuted.
But then,
prosecuted.
So then, like, I think that they should be, out of here. But like, you know, so then it comes back to the original question. Then is like, if the protest leaders were the ones that were in charge of the tone for this, and they did not do a good job at like policing this, like, don't Jews good enough job? They did some. I will say they did, and I will always say that there were definitely speeches and stuff that were put out there that were trying to tamp it down. I do think that, you know,
and every time there was like an image or video of somebody doing something awful, there was always 6 or 7 people trying to stop that from happening. And
it was always out of frame. But the issue was also that it never got better. Like, if I always reckon with, I've always like been annoyed at that argument, because I'm like, if there was an actual response and there was all these people that were trying to, you know, make things better, then like it just didn't get better. And I think that can we maybe agree on this thing? I have always thought of this reality where after October 7th, the protest leaders on both, and I will say this is a both sides thing, if there was a bigger bridge made between the two groups, if there was some of this toxic language and toxic, targeting, or however you want to talk, whatever you want to say, was taken out of the anti-Israel spaces, and some of the toxic language, because there is that there, you know, UCLA, I remember that they beat up those campus people, like stuff like that.
And the police knew who it was, but they made no arrests.
Listen, the police weren't unhealthy. I mean, we can have a whole entire conversation of just high-fiving each other over how ineffective the police response to this has been. If there was a bigger effort put in the beginning of these protests to try to get some bridge or something, or just to tap down on the toxicness of it, I do think that things would be somewhat in a better place. And I don't want to even speculate, but I do think things may have been better for finding a conclusion. But even then, I take that back, because that's stupid, because Trump and...
Here's what I think. On the one hand, you have a subset of people who are anti-occupation, and on the other side, you have people who are pro-occupation. Can those two sides like make peace and be happy and find common ground?
But don't you see an issue with even labeling like that? Like, Israel is not going away. It's just not. Palestinians are not going away. So if we keep on...
the position is we should go back to how things were before October 7th, which was blanket occupation. There's
no going back. What needs to happen is that all of the countries in that region have to fucking step up. They have to aid... Israel and Gaza and the West Bank has been an issue for fucking years. If you look at every single country in that region... It's
been an issue from the very beginning, because that solution of pushing them into these pockets was never a real solution.
Totally. And then after that, all of the support from Syria, Iran, Lebanon, UAE, Qatar, all of these places that do have money, that could have made things significantly better. Egypt... We can talk about the border being closed down. All these places had Israel and America also, and NATO and the UN and every single other fucking country had an obligation to make things better for the Palestinians. My personal belief is that none of them wanted to, because they liked using them as a placeholder to kind of get your frustrations out, and it's easier to keep this one little group of people oppressed so that we can keep on pointing to them as a rally call.
It's an interesting conspiracy.
What?
It's an interesting conspiracy.
Do you think it's not?
Here's what I think. I think the American government... its position for the very beginning was, we are going to be Israel's lawyer. And so every time they came in to make peace, what they were doing was they were trying to protect Israel's position, which is, we want to exist in our space, and we want the option to conquer the other spaces later. That's always been the Israeli position from the very beginning. Otherwise, they wouldn't have settlements. You understand?
So
this is the government. This is the Israeli. This is the position of the state of Israel.
Sorry, but I just want to put
in order to be that country, you have to be pro settlements.
No, but the thing is, I'm sorry, but that's not true. I'm sorry, it's just not true. If you were an 18-year-old kid whose cousins live in Israel, who is against the war, you don't fall under that boat. I don't fall under this. There's no reason why I should be treated, and people like me should be treated like fucking Bibi.
You shouldn't.
So, but there we are. That's the
I
problem.
agree. And like I said before, I think anybody who did any violence on either side ought to be prosecuted.
But then referring to it as pro-occupation, anti-occupation is language that prevents people from seeing. How are you going to see eye to eye with pro-occupation, anti-occupation?
That's what I'm trying to say. That's the challenge, right?
But then the challenge is respecting. The challenge is pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian.
So on the flip side, then, because you put a lot of responsibility on the organizers of the pro-Palestine side, would you say that the organizers of the pro-Israel side have not done enough to make clear that they are anti-occupation and that Zionism, in their eyes, does not necessitate the occupation, the endless occupation, and the inevitable conquering and the elimination of the Palestinian identity?
I think that on the other side of this, you have a structure of defendants that don't take a healthy relationship with Israel, that are funded by billionaires and foreign governments. And I say that as someone who knows where some of the money came from. I was approached about getting involved with some of the stuff that I turned down because I knew where it was coming from. Are you asking if the people in charge of the Israel side have an issue with this? Fucking 100%. And that's what we can agree on. That's here. What we can agree. Is that both sides of this
and the occupation,
Listen, we're not calling it occupation here. But we can't, because I don't consider it occupation. If not West Bank is occupation.
Every major human rights organization considers it an occupation.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
The UN just passed a resolution saying end the occupation, now it's illegal.
Yeah, and this is the issue, is that we're not going to have a larger conversation about Israel here, because that's irrelevant. Like, this isn't a question
of... We're talking about Zohran.
We're talking about how its effects have been in America, and how you can't just, specifically in New York, and how you can't just, belittle and, a group of people because of their connection to Israel. Because it is, a standard thing, and it's been used to,
I was just trying to explain why it's so triggering for people.
Oh, I get it.
For it to say, I am pro-Israel. Because like I said, Israel has never existed without occupying an entire ethnic people.
And then I will say, then you go on the reverse of this. So the answer to that is that they haven't existed without being attacked by some group of people. But I'm saying, that's the tit for tat that doesn't get anywhere. You know what I mean? Where I think that there's no end to this, because we keep on...
But it's not a tit for tat, because then you're implying that the Palestinian people came from somewhere to be occupied. You know what I'm saying? It began with the occupation.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't even want to touch this stuff, because there's the Jewish side of it is that we were kicked out of a billion other places, not just Poland, not just Czechoslovakia.
But Zionism, I think, even definitionally, is not we are returning to our land. Zionism, by definition, is we have the sole right to conquer this land.
I think that the issue with saying stuff like the definition of Zionism is that the definition of Zionism has changed 50 fucking times, and every single person has a different understanding and definition of Zionism. Zionism, it's like gumbo. You make it your own. You got your own special sauce to it.
I agree.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why I think I want to bring up the next point about why you think Zohran is dangerous, because he hasn't sufficiently condemned terms like intifada in your eyes. The gumbo reference is actually
Let me just say, great segue. I also think we're doing a pretty good job here.
I think we're close to fixing it.
I think it's right there. I think 10 more minutes of this.
Intifada.
Yeah.
Like you said, about Zionism, has a lot of different meanings. Like the Arabic language, I'm not an expert in the Arabic language, but I know that people... The way that the Arabic language functions is that every word has a lot of meaning, and that's why I think the study of the Quran, which I think is in the Talmud as well, is so infinite because of the way that so many words can be interpreted in so many different ways and blah blah blah. So when people say he's not condemning intifada, we don't even agree on what intifada means, right? Because I'm Egyptian, I'm going to talk about the Egyptian Revolution. When the Egyptian Revolution originally happened, and then it happened again recently in the early 2010s, they're called intifadas. It means shaking off. It means uprising of a weaker power against a stronger power. So when you're saying you need to condemn the word uprising because it's Arabic and we're scared of Arabic. That's how it sounds.
Do you question of this when you hear? Okay, so great. Intifada has two different meanings to two different groups of people. That we can agree on that, right? One side of it just means the basic definition of like a shaking off, resisting, a shaking off. The other side of it is that there is a direct attachment to a series of things, like an actual two events. The first Intifada, which was way less violent than the second Intifada. The second Intifada was a series of bus bombings and IDF reaction, and it was what these are two groups of people. Unfortunately, the bombings and maybe they mostly targeted military things. Of course,
I'll say
then
the vast majority of people
more
who died
Palestinians
in the Intifada were Palestinians.
Exact. I was totally getting
the trauma
to that.
goes both ways.
1,000%, and that's always it. I think we can also agree on this. Every single time one thing happens, there's an overreaction on the other side, and who always gets caught and has the worst hand in it? The Palestinians. Right. We can totally agree on that. When I hear Intifada, I hear, let's bring it back to the second one. Like there is a specific, there's a specific event.
Where's the consistency, man?
What?
Where's the consistency?
The consistency is that when the chanters are chanting it, they are talking about the second Intifada. But a second ago,
you said that you can't condemn Zionism because a lot of people don't feel that way the same way that you feel about it. Now you're saying that it doesn't matter what you think about it. I feel a certain way, and therefore you need to condemn it.
Because if you are shot or have a Molotov cocktail thrown at you or harassed or stalked in America in 2025 because you are a Jew, it is likely to be associated with you're likely to hear globalize the Intifada in the background of it. If yes, by the numbers, if you are attacked right now because you are Jewish in America, it is because of there is a larger percentage chance because of Israel and Palestine. Like that's just by the numbers. Because of that, and it's the globalized Intifada. It's the terminology, it's the phraseology that follows all this stuff. If that association wasn't so tied in to this like violent streak in America against Jews, then yeah, I would totally be with you. If people were just like walking around like chanting Intifada,
still inconsistent.
What?
It's still really inconsistent.
How? Who in America? What?
Who
in America is being killed because people are chanting Zionist stuff at them?
Are you serious?
Who in America? Yeah, dead serious. Who?
Wadi al-Fayoum.
Okay,
6-year-olds.
Yes, but
he was stabbed 26 times.
I agree, and then also there were two people shot outside the Jewish Museum.
Right.
And we both have.
But
had
you
our
just
drama.
asked who's died because of this rhetoric.
It's I will say false equivalency just by the fact of the numbers. Like yes, I get that there are people that are
those
targeted.
Those two students in Vermont who got shot.
Totally, and yes, and there's more. Like just by the numbers, there have been a bigger percentage number increase in attacks on Jews than attacks on Palestinian. Just over the past like 650 days, that just like is by the numbers. So like, yes, I agree that if the Zionism thing was an actual big problem that was leading to a huge number of students being harassed and targeted and violence against them being harassed by using the term Zionism and saying we're doing this because we are Zionists and we're chanting Zionist uprising at them and then doing that, then yeah, I'm totally with you on there. But that just doesn't exist.
Because it's not students, it's the United States government.
But that's
ICE. Did you see the video of Rumeysa Oster getting picked up off the street?
I agree. Here's the thing that we agree on. The Trump response to this has been fucking crazy and has made Jews
but you're
look
saying
worse.
that people who are pro-Palestine are not worried about not watching their backs because there's no big violence happening against them.
Not by yelling.
Mahmoud Khalil was in jail for 100
but
days.
But
missed the
not for
birth
yelling
of his first
Zionism stuff out there. There's a huge difference here.
They have to yell Zionism stuff at them?
I'm not going to atone for ICE. They're doing this because they're racist. Like the people that got picked up, the Mahmoud Khalil thing happened because you had Donald Trump trying to appease his base. He's a racist piece of shit who wanted to do that. And he picked a guy that had a tie-in to Colombia's encampment and he figured out the loophole and then he put him in a prison in Louisiana for.
But you're missing the subtext here. And the subtext here is that they were both targeted and a lot of other people were targeted for speaking against Zionism. So all I'm saying is that I want you to be more consistent when you want one side to condemn the use of terminology that they use because you don't accept their definition, when at the same time you want me to accept that the term Zionist is a lot more complicated and sophisticated and it's a soup.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it hasn't been used to violently the Jewish community.
To you how it was.
No, that's not the Jewish community, and this is the problem. You're talking about ICE. You're talking about the Trump administration. You are talking about a group of right-wingers who had racist inclinations ahead of time, who have wanted to do this shit for a long time, and they're using the concept of anti-Semitism as a reason to do this. They're not doing it for Zionism. They're doing it because because it's fucking Donald Trump and Stephen Miller.
But they're targeting them because these two students that we're focusing on spoke out against Zionism.
Yeah, but not Zionism. That's not why they were. I don't even think that they were. I think that they weren't even
You don't think
arrested.
the term Zionism had anything to do with it?
I think that
that the government accepting that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism had nothing to do with it.
No, I think that, first of all, I think that we cannot be trying to figure out what the fucking government, who is doing a bad job at this, is trying to. We can't rationalize what they're doing here. I think that they got picked up, one, because of racism, two, just because they were associated with pro-Palestinian marches. That's it. I don't think that if we're using the specific term Zionism has not been chanted. Like, you're not going to go to Jewish, rallies and hear people just chanting Zionism, Zionism.
All right, let me show you a picture. Because I just had a book event, and it was organized by a man wearing a shirt, "I am a Zionist."
Did he violently assault anyone at this thing?
He shot somebody, I think a month before, or maybe like almost a year.
And he's out of prison?
He was acquitted.
Why did he shoot somebody?
That person tackled him.
Why did the person tackle him?
Because he was, I think, had like a giant Israeli flag or something like that.
Like, what do we? That's like not a clear cut.
All I'm saying is, you're saying that these people are not shouting Zionism, saying they wear slogans with Zionist.
No, I do think that, but I don't think that has equated to any large amount of violence committed against pro-Palestinian protesters. And I think that is the biggest difference maker here. Is that when someone is attacking someone else. What is?
I'm just trying to find this.
Oh yeah, I saw the picture. No, you're accurate. You had a book event, and there was someone that showed up with an Israeli flag
and a T-shirt that said "I am a Zionist."
But like, that is one event. It doesn't speak to a larger problem here.
Okay.
So
all I'm saying is, what you said about terminology, I think, is really important. I think there is an overabundance of phrases and terms that people do not agree on, like what a final term means, but at the same time they're willing to condemn the other for the least generous interpretation when using that term. From the river to the sea, for example.
I don't get involved in that one. Dead serious. I think that most people think they hear the Palestine will be free, and I think that that's what they associate it with.
Yeah.
There we
go. And also, it's like from the river to the sea is also something that exists in the Likud Charter. That's often frequently
and that's the problem, though, is that
by people who are
and I don't agree with them. I think that there's the thing is that, like, you'll find once again 95% of people agree on this stuff. We're against the racist.
We're agreeing here. But what I'm saying is there is an over policing of the language, and I think it's intentional, and it's a tactic to obfuscate the intention and the character of the people deploying those phrases. And I think it's not done in good faith. And I think the intention is to condemn the entire movement, which I would characterize as anti-war, as being inherently dangerous to a subset of people, which I don't think is fair, especially because that subset of people, they exist in small numbers, they exist in that movement. So not only when they say that this entire anti-war movement is dangerous, what they're doing is they need to cling to something, and because they aren't in the streets chanting "Death to the Jews," which is a clear genocidal chant, because they're not doing that, they have to obfuscate it by saying, "Well, this word is Arabic. Intifada is Arabic."
But there is a tie.
That's what they're actually saying.
No, but there's an actual. But that would act like the Intifada thing just showed up. Like, I've known about the Intifada since I was a kid. I remember I've eaten in the. So it's like.
But in my context, it was used all over the place for all different kinds of uprisings.
Yeah, but that's like saying swastika used to be a peace symbol. Like, to Jews, I think about it, and I think that was a time where Jews were targeted just because they were civilians in Israel. Like, that is what there isn't a positive association. I also want to. Am I wrong? And this is maybe a little bit of a change of pace, whatever. Am I wrong in thinking the Intifada also didn't improve anything? No. After the second Intifada, the border wall in West Bank got put up. So it's and
the occupation became a lot more violent.
Absolutely, because it was given a reason to over-respond, and it over-responded. And you also, things got worse in the West Bank, but things also got significantly better in Israel. So it's like, what can you do? It's the world's most complicated puzzle. Just it keeps on happening over and over.
Settlers moved into the West Bank after the Second Intifada?
Brother, I am with you on this one. I think that the way that the West Bank has been handled has been an atrocity. The lines have not been respected. And to be honest, and I'm going to say something that sucks that I think we also probably agree on, the Hilltoppers won. They won. Who's going to rein them in?
Why did they win?
Because America never reined in Bibi.
Because the state of Israel has sanctioned what they do.
Yeah.
And they're part of the Israeli strategy to accomplish Zionism, which is the conquering of the whole land.
What if I told you that there are so many Jews and Israelis that agree with you, minus the last part of it, that agree with you that there's been a catastrophe that's been happening in the West Bank and there's been a catastrophe that's been happening in Gaza, who are against how this has been handled.
It's amazing, yeah.
Like, so how do you square them away? Like, because they're Zionists.
I know. I interview them. I write pieces about Israel often, and I often reach out to these people and I talk to them. I know a lot of people who work at Haaretz, who work at 972 Plus magazine. I know them. I know people who have children who are in Israeli prisons because they're conscientious objectors. You don't need to tell me that these people exist. I know they exist. What I don't think makes sense is you're going to condemn Zohran for him being too soft on the student protesters and for them using the words like globalizing intifada, a phrase that he's never uttered.
Yeah, but
so you're saying that Zohran is making people here feel unsafe. What I'm saying is he's actually good for people here.
So on that point, the issue is
that.
No. This is great. I love it. You have to work in journalism. No.
Yeah.
Zohran, by him not identifying, because of his attachment and association with the group that has been associated with this rise in violence, that is why he has to answer to it at this point. Also, I don't think he's done a good job at responding to it, to be honest. I don't think that his campaign, I don't think he's been... You think he's done a good job at avoiding the question? It's only come up 50,000 times.
I think he's done better than anyone else in reaching out to the Jewish community in New York.
Oh no, that's a whole other question. I think he's done a very good job at reaching out to it.
Did you see his Yiddish posters?
Yes, but how many of those people actually went out there and voted for him? He
came in second in that community.
In the Hasidic community?
Behind Cuomo, yeah, look it up.
In the Hasidic community?
Well, what I saw was the Jewish New Yorkers.
But that's the problem, is that you can't associate like all Jewish New Yorkers like that. The Hasidic community are the people that read Yiddish. It's not a stunt. You put that out. I remember the beginning of were you here during the pandemic at all?
I was in New Jersey, but I came to New York.
So if you walked through Hasidic Williamsburg, if you wanted to see Yiddish COVID posters, walk through there if you want to see Yiddish, 311 announcements and stuff like that. Like, it was out there as like by the way, here, it wasn't like a stunt. It was like an actual like attempt to getting message across. I don't think the Hasidic community went for Zohran in any major way. I also think that, I don't know if those guys vote in the primary, but it is what it is. But anyways, Zohran. So here's the issue. Zohran, because anti-Semitism has come from anti-Israel spaces, there is an obligation out there with Zohran, who is from some of those spaces, to at least label it and call it out, to make the Jewish community feel that when it does become a problem next year, because we have college coming back to campus, and once again, no matter what side of this, that shit's going to pop off. That is something that he does have an obligation to kind of to address. He does have an obligation to go out there and say, hey, this term, which we get, it means one thing to you, means a death chant to the other people. We're against that. We do think that there should be... Okay. What? Go.
Keep on.
Anyways, okay. But I've been talking too much. What do you...
I feel like Zohran's done that. I think he's on many occasions condemned anti-Semitism flatly without condition. He's also talked about investing significant taxpayer money.
But we know that's not the question he was being asked. He's answered the politician way. He was asked...
promising money to police anti-Semitism?
Yes, as a way...
What more can he do?
First of all, campaign promises are campaign promises. I don't buy... Of course the money will go there. What he can do is he can say that this group who is responsible, this section of the universe that is responsible for the heightening of the tension, I condemn what they specifically are doing, and I know that I have to, because that is why people are asking me about this specific thing, he has to assuage fears.
Okay, at the beginning of this conversation, you talked about how the way we consume media and the way we publish media has a lot to do with heightening fear and tension.
This is
Have you been to the encampments?
Yes, this is not.
And somebody chased you or like did something bad to you?
You have to understand, I've literally met and talked to these kids. I have met. This is not some theory out there.
You don't think it's like...
I have seen more swastikas. I saw a fucking swastika at Columbia. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is an actual issue. I'm not asking him to condemn all protesters. I'm asking him to take an actual, like, physical response. Fuck the right. Say, I am against anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and the Jews and the laser and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all those other people. But also, I do admit that there is an issue that is coming from a place where I rose through prominence from.
I hear you. So you would like him to come out and say, fuck anti-Semitism stronger.
I would like him to say anti-Semitism is a problem on the left in these anti-Israel spaces. And this is my plan.
And this is my plan. Assuage your concerns.
And this is my plan to deal with it. Yes, totally. Absolutely, totally. Dead serious. And I've said this over and over on Instagram. This is the wall. The wall, and I'm telling you right now, it's not just me. There's a lot of people out there that want to vote for him, that love his kooky shit, that also, let's be honest, Eric Adams sucks. Andrew Cuomo is a sexual predator. Is there a third? Curtis Lewa? I mean...
Brad Lander?
Brad Lander's not, but yeah.
I've met him. He's awesome.
Brad Lander, you know what I say about Brad Lander? Gave the worst answer to a question I've ever
Don't tell me it's like Mets Yankees related.
It was Mets Yankees, and he said he's a Cardinals fan, and I was like, who's gonna have a better season, Mets Yankees? He was like Cardinals. I was like, you're not gonna win. Yeah. Anyways, Zohran does have some obligation to speak up against that stuff. Is kind of like the point here. Yeah, and I will say, what I was going to say is that I will swap. I will 100%. If he goes out there and says it's a problem on the left, I understand why people are asking me about this, and I get why there's also racism involved, but I also get that there's a valid concern out there.
So going into Jewish communities, specifically and saying, hey, I'm here for you, I'm going to represent you, that does nothing.
He would have to. I think that it is lip service until something more substantial is said. It is. It's like, it's the same way where if Cuomo was to show up to a mosque now and just say like, hey, I'm here, like, would you take that? Cuomo never went to,
He also has never pledged to like invest in like an anti-Islamophobia task force.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah, but Zohran did.
Absolutely. What?
Zohran did.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I'm like right there. And also, I mean, like, this is the issue with him. I'm like, right here with him on so much, and I don't get why this is the sticking point. Like, I don't get why you can come out.
Here's why this has been the sticking point, and I think I can explain it to you. I'm going to try to do it as clearly as I can. For the last 2 years, and even beyond, the accusations of this entire movement against the merciless bombardment of Gaza has been faced with of false and disingenuous accusations of anti-Semitism. That's true. It just is.
I agree.
People like Mahmoud Khalil, he was on TV saying there's no room for anti-Semitism within our movement.
We're not going to agree on that. The issue with him
he said it.
Yeah, but the issue is that he was also in charge of the encampments. And the encampments, he was a lead negotiator. He was a senior member in the encampment.
And he contended anti-Semitism.
Except that if he did, then it wouldn't have been such a fucking problem.
What do you mean if it did? He did.
But if he took a stronger stance, clearly going out there and just being like, hey guys, we got to tone it down was not enough. Like, there needed to be, and him as an adult, he needed to see what was happening and be like, okay, like, I get, this isn't,
Okay. The accusation of anti-Semitism has not just been used as a bludgeon to mischaracterize this anti-war movement as being pro-violence as a whole.
Yeah, I agree.
Not just that, but also it's been used in Congress to accuse people like the president of Harvard, the provost of Stanford, and so many other people of being, of allowing and creating space for the harassment of people by not being sufficiently hard and clamping down in those anti-war student protesters.
Yeah, I think but
what I'm saying is...
I agree. But I agree with that, though, is that I do think that they did a terrible job. The issue with the colleges was that, once again, I worked with Hillels and Chabads and stuff like that. I know the is MSA still around? Is that okay? So like MSA, all that stuff, like, I know the structure, infrastructure, right? This has not been a new problem. This was a problem for years and years and years. And what was the college response to that problem? Let's not put the kids in the same room and have them talk with each other. Let's put them on the opposite ends of the campus and make sure that they never talk to each other. Mm-hmm. So eventually, when the most predictable thing of all time happened, October 7th, even though I think a lot of people, it was way worse than we thought, but we all knew that something terrible was going to happen there. The campus response to it, the colleges were already 50 yards behind and had no ability to catch up to it. And they didn't handle it correctly after that. Jews felt unsafe, and Muslims and pro-Palestinian protesters and so many people felt unsafe, which meant to me that the Jewish problem was a Jewish problem, but also the general protest problem was just not handled correctly. Then at the end of it, you know what it ended? It ended with the fucking police ladder on the car showing up to Columbia. They didn't handle this correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
I interviewed one of the students I was in the building, and they told me that the least safe any students ever were on campus was when those cops showed up. And they fired a gun on campus.
I would agree if there weren't kids that were actually violently assaulted for being Jewish on campus.
They threw a Jewish student down the steps, the NYPD.
Yeah, and JVP also stalked and harassed some Jewish kids. And a kid had a bottle thrown at his head, I think in Pittsburgh. And 2 people were shot outside the Jewish museum. This has happened. We agree that this... Yeah.
What did Zohran say about the Jewish shooting, the Jewish museum shooting?
He
condemned it
without calling out the
horrific,
without calling out the globalized intifada and the left-wing attachment to it, which is the problem. I wanted him to go out there and say, this is bullshit, this is terrible, but
he condemned, quote, the appalling rise of anti-Semitic violence.
From where?
That everywhere.
But that's not the answer, though. You get how that's all lives mattering. It is coming from.
Here's where I think we're gonna agree. I think that Zohran condemning anti-Semitism is an indisputable fact. I think what he said about the rising anti-Semitism, I think it exists. You don't think it went far enough?
Yeah.
I think it's farther than what I've heard any politician say about the rising Islamophobia, or the fact that these people have been fired from their jobs for no reason other than being Muslim and empathetic because they're the vulnerable ones. Yeah. Here in New York City, for example, CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations, had to hire new staff to field all of the reports of Islamophobia that they've been getting. Teachers lost their jobs for talking about Gaza. Hospital workers, Palestinian hospital workers, lost their jobs.
And I agree that that's an issue, and Jews have also lost their jobs, and Jews have been excommunicated, and there's professors that have
But we have
lost...
politicians coming out and saying, we condemn that. We don't have that on the Islamophobia side.
But that doesn't, but then this goes back to, that's not a reason.
He's doing more at this point for the Jewish community than he's doing for the Muslim community, because who out there is condemning Islamophobia on that scale?
I agree with this. There we are, but I still don't think that he went far enough. Especially when there's a very specific tie-in there. Can we agree? We agree that, okay, let's agree on one thing, or try to agree on something here. The rise in tension on college campuses came from anti-Israel spaces in some capacity. You don't think that the rise in anti-Semitism came from anti-Israel spaces?
Do I think it originated in anti-Israel spaces?
650 days, over the past 650 days, there was a rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses.
I would think it had more to do with the internet than it did with college campuses specifically.
No, I'm talking about specifically on college campuses, because the numbers are on college campuses rose.
Let me look up one more thing. Because I think I remember Greenbalt, the director of the ADL, saying something about how those numbers are tracked. And I think he even, on the news, admitted that they were...
First of all, I'm not going to even talk about Jonathan Green. We can, off camera, talk about him for a half hour because I have issues with him. The ADL I have huge issues with. I do think that the way that they go about getting their numbers is not inaccurate. I do also think that some of this reporting does go through specific Jewish groups on campus. I'm not going to name groups. But
we don't have to talk about it.
But things, it was an issue.
But he said
that what?
that they sometimes count multiple reports of the same incident as being multiple incidents.
I'm not. If we are arguing the minutia of how he goes about this issue, that is clearly an issue. Like it's marked.
Is clearly an issue.
Like it's clearly an issue. Like I'm not going to go out there and say that like the stuff that the Palestinian side is going through isn't happening, because it is happening. You guys are getting, not you guys, you know what I mean? The royal you guys are getting rounded up, and it's very unfair.
And no one's coming to their defense.
And no one is coming to their defense. Well, recently more people have come, but at the same time, the people
on
that
the government level,
I was going to say the issue is that because of the current demographic breakdown of Congress after the elections, no one is there to do anything about this, because it's kind of like a runaway train right now until the midterms happen, at which point there is like some sort of...
Here's what I think is the risk of him saying that these groups are anti-Semitic. I think it's dangerous for him for two reasons. One, I think as a politician, it'll show weakness because he's kowtowing to, I think, like what's become like a major campaign to weaken his support by painting him as something that he's not, as an anti-Semite, which I don't even think you think he is.
I actually do not think he's anti-Semite. My problem is it's like...
But I think I think if he were to say, no, these people that I've been going to bat for this whole time, I now condemn, I think is going to hurt him with his own supporters. And I think people are going to smell blood in the water, and there's no way he's going to win this election. That's the first risk. And the second risk is he would be, I think, aiding and giving this machine that's out to criminalize, which they've already been doing. I think they're going to be giving them even more fodder to go after these kids. Because now Mahmoud Khalil's detention would be at least somewhat justified.
No, I don't.
Because he didn't do enough.
I don't think it would be justified.
No, but this is the risk, is what he's... I think it's open to interpretation, and I think he might... I don't know. I haven't... Yeah. I'm not in his head. But I think there's a lot of risk with further hurting and alienating this population that you agree has had no help, that's been faced with a monstrous campaign to criminalize their anti-war activism. And so, I think by him moving on this, by specifically going after this group, he will be further hurting what is right now probably among the most vulnerable people in the country.
I think that there is a way for him to go out there and call it out without demonizing like this group. I think that there is a way. Let's say I'll be Zohran for a second. What if I did a very offensive impression right there? No, I'm joking. That was a joke. Let's say I'm Zohran. I go out there and I say, over the past couple of weeks, I've met with XYZ people, and I have found that as much as I understand that anti-Semitism is a problem from extremist spaces on the right, I also acknowledge that it is a part of the problem on the left, and I do recognize that it has come from anti-Israel spaces, though I still stand with Palestinians. I march with the Palestinian causes. I'll still donate XYZ thing. I stand with you guys, but I do have to admit that there is a section that has been problematic, and I acknowledge that it is there, and that $800 million that I am planning on putting towards the task force, X amount of that is going off to handle this, and we can stop talking about this, even though we won't stop talking about it, but he'd be able to say, I already spoke about it. Mm-hmm. Is that too far?
I think it's more than any politician's done for anything else.
Do you think that he's been dealt the card where he has to, though? In the position that he is? Yeah.
I don't think it's unfair to ask that question. But what I do think is no other community is asking for that level of specificity. And I think every community is going through it right now. Yeah. I don't think anybody's been... Well, he condemned it, but did he condemn it with using these specific words? I don't think I've seen the black community go that far, or the Arab or Muslim community go that far. So I think, you're entitled to feel like this is what he needs to say to win your specific vote.
Yeah,
cool. but great.
But it's not my specific vote. It's like 15% of the voting population in New York.
But I think like even then there's a certain level of inconsiderance of the fact that right now this community that you think he's not going hard enough on is already going through a lot, right? And I would love to hear people of that position saying he's not going hard enough on those student protesters, to acknowledge that these protesters are being falsely mischaracterized as dangerous, when I think by and large, and yeah, it exists, and there's like certain obviously people who need to be prosecuted, not persecuted, prosecuted. Do I think that people like that need to be policed better? Yeah. Do I think that now is the time for someone like Zohran to come out and say, oh, hey, people like Mahmoud Khalil did not go far enough. He just got out of prison, and we're really happy that he's not being held as a political prisoner anymore.
But he doesn't have to talk he doesn't have to talk about him specifically. There's a way to just handle it with a little more. Here's the other thing: is that like it doesn't need to even be that big of a thing. Like he just needs to say.
He pledged a ton of resources.
Yeah, but that also came when people wanted him. When he pledged the resources, it was a time where people wanted him to say a specific thing, and instead of saying that specific thing,
he came up with a solution.
He said the political thing
and came up with a solution.
That's not a solution. It's 800 million. Here's $1 billion for this. It's not a real thing. Also, if the guy who thinks here's the argument against it. I don't think that he thinks this, but you could make the argument that if the guy is unwilling to call out anti-Semitism from the left, then who knows where that $800 million is going. That $800 million is up for his interpretation. What if that $800 million goes against Hillel because they have birthright, and all of a sudden he's like, "What? I'm taking out hate speech. They are against, they are against certain Jews, even though they're not. But I'm using this as a reason to defund them." There's like,
I think they did. I think there was a case here in Colombia where they kicked out Jewish members who were not sufficiently pro-Zionist.
I think that. I don't want to speak on it just because every time I've heard these allegations and these kind of things, what I've later found out, and I want to say this, I don't want to talk about the Colombia thing that you just said because I don't know specifically. What I've often found is that whenever these questions are brought up, it was always someone that had gone into Hillel with the express trying to get kicked out, basically.
Inciting.
It was an inciting thing, which it wasn't an authentic thing. And listen, at the end of the day, we can talk, birthright is birthright, whatever. Hillel is where you get kosher food. If I'm a kid that is religious
or
on
just
campus,
go study.
Exactly. And kids going there to do those things are targeted just for going there. So it goes back to the original problem of using Hillel's association with Israel as a reason to target kids. All kids, even though if they're just going there because this is the only place they can get Shabbos, a Shabbos dinner and stuff like that, which is, yeah.
Okay, well, here's where I think we can land.
Yeah.
Did the campus protesters explicitly, with purpose and intention, go after Jewish students for being Jewish?
Yes. Then here's the thing, you're able to tell because oftentimes...
I thought we made ground on that.
What?
You think that they explicitly and with intention went after Jewish students for their religious identity?
Oh, I was saying they were identifiably Jewish.
No, I think that they existed as a group to target Jewish students on campus.
Wait, sorry, say that again? I'm
saying, did these anti-war groups that popped up on campus and formed encampments in order to, I've interviewed them. They explicitly created those encampments to pressure the leaders in university, like the presidents and people who manage the budget, to defund from companies that they thought invested in war profiteering and, were funding the bombs being dropped on a defenseless population. So they, I think, made their explicit intention clear. I'm asking you, do you think that they, with intention or with permission, existed to hurt or make Jewish students afraid?
I think that the reason why the encampment there was not to do that, but the outcome of it was protesting for Palestinians and targeting Jewish kids because they were Jewish. There were kids that were followed from Hillel. There were kids that, Star of David, if I got a yarmulke on, if it's Friday night, you know who the fancy kids are on Friday nights because they're coming back from Shabbos services and they're going to their meals and stuff like that. The
Those
encampments...
in the encampments, weren't they? There were lots of kids wearing Stars of David.
No. They weren't. It was not true. This wasn't the demo that was there. It was, you want to talk about certain, the 11% of people that associate with JVP or something, but if you want to talk about how there are certain Jews that were in the encampment, sure. once again, 89% of Jews would not be in that encampment. So it's the 11% that you're judging the entire community based off being like, oh, look, they got Jewish friends.
No, because we're trying to understand is the intention of those kids.
I think that their
we're trying
intention...
to condemn those kids, right? So I want to understand their intention.
There was a anti-Israel thing. It was an encampment. Call it what you want to call it. It was anti-Israel, whatever. It was anti-something. The outcome of that was it created an environment that for some reason led to Jewish kids being targeted. That's the answer.
Fair.
So it's like, are they targeted because they're Jewish, because they're religious? Is it because they're targeted because of their religion? Like, yeah, they are. It happens to be that this religion also has a significant tie-in to Israel. So it's like, and once again, these are kids on Columbia. They can't have nothing to do with how, Bibi is affecting policy out there. Where are we at? What is you look frustrated. What is the thing that I'm a
little frustrated.
Let's go.
I thought we could at least agree that these movements on campus, started by students and supported by faculty, were not explicitly there to hurt anyone.
I agree. I didn't say that. I didn't say that they were there. I think that the outcome of it, though, was that one of the outcomes was that Jews got targeted for this. Mm-hmm. The other outcome was bringing eyes to Palestinians. I'm sure a lot of money was raised. I'm sure a lot of good was done. We all know about Gaza now in America. I think that's a positive thing to take away from this, is that we all definitely know what's happening out there because of the tensions on campus. But at the same time, like, it did target Jews.
Here's just why I'm so frustrated. Because I feel like we both established and understood that anti-Semitism was being used as a bludgeon to punish those kids because people specifically disagreed with their political stance worldwide, right? These kids wanted a political outcome. They organized around a political identity, doing what people have done politically as a political strategy, forming an encampment for generations of activists. Let's not pretend like these were the first kids to invent the campus encampments, and this is a practice that has been done in the Vietnam War and previous. So I think the accusation of anti-Semitism, in my view, is already being used to such a degree that it's made a lot of these kids afraid for their lives, afraid for their futures. It's already been the cause, the reason, the accusation of Semitism has already been the cause that many of these students have been in prison, in detention centers without due process, have been beat up, have gotten harassed, have lost their jobs, have gotten a lot, like, that's what the accusation of anti-Semitism has already wrought on this community. So when someone like Zohran, who I think you can't disconnect him from this movement because he was the only person in politics from the very beginning going out and saying, leave these kids alone. Do not send the NYPD.
Oh, there were a bunch of... By that point, it had gotten to a point where there was a national conversation.
He was among the first.
Maybe sure is what I'll say.
Shouting at... okay.
But we also... I want to say, we agree on that, though.
Right. But here's the point I'm trying to make, and then I'm going to get there. I'll get there right now, because you already understand. By further jumping onto this and not being very careful as to accuse these kids as anti-Semitism, again, I think risks further hurting and inflicting violence upon this community, which, as you admitted from the very, very beginning, was by a vast majority peaceful.
But why can't there be any way to kind of meet in the middle here and say, like, anti-Semitism, and if you follow my account, I talk about, like, anti-Semitism is being used in this case completely irresponsibly. We agree on that. I agree.
With bad faith.
What?
In bad faith.
How so?
And that they're not actually looking for examples of anti-Semitism. They're getting riled up. They're starting with the conclusion and they're looking for the evidence.
Exactly. We agree on that. We also, I think you're going to find a huge amount of Jews that felt really uncomfortable with how the roundups, were happening. I think also Mahmoud Khalil was an interesting moment because you were seeing, like, right-wing people just being like, this is fucking crazy. Like, that was like an instigating, moment.
He was a legal resident.
It was a completely like disgusting thing that happened.
He never hurt
But there's
anybody.
got to be a way to go like, you are using anti-Semitism as a reason to do bullshit stuff, and you don't care about the Jewish community. Also, you guys have an issue with not reining in anti-Semitic, bad actors in your space. The protest leaders have an obligation to tone down some of the rhetoric. Both sides have failed. And, I will say this also, is that it is almost like a mirror fucking image of Israel. Someone did something and there was an overreaction to it, and now we're all fighting and everyone is taking their own benefit out of it.
Okay, so in that example, do you think it's useful to condemn the ones that are being arrested?
I think that the Mahmoud Khalil thing was interesting to me because he's of a sudden...
By the way, not the only one to be arrested.
No, totally. We're going to use him as the example here. It was an interesting thing where my take was like, God, this guy should not be in prison, but he also does have some responsibility as one of the leaders, as one of the senior members on the encampment, to tone things down. So it is wrong that he is being locked up, but it's hard to go out there and protest for him and join those protests.
I wish he was here, and I wish you could talk to him, because you and I don't know all of what he did to try to clamp that down.
I do know the outcome, though. And the outcome was that...
We don't know what he tried to do.
But I do know the outcome. If I was involved in this... You're talking to someone that has left spaces because of how racist, homophobic, anti-Islamic... You're talking to someone that's left these spaces. If I was in a situation where I saw that problematic language was being used, and I was someone that was in it, and if I tried to stamp it out and it didn't work... then I would loudly leave and say, you guys are fucking bigots. Here's XYZ thing, why. If he actually wanted to take a stand against this, then there's other ways to take a stand against it. I don't buy that there was any actual, not just him, but all the protest leaders who were in charge of making sure the tone didn't go too far. I just don't believe that there was an actual effort there to stamp things down a little bit.
I would love for both of us to do our research and find out what exactly was done to police anti-Semitism in those encampments.
The only thing that because I have thought about this, the only thing I've ever been able to find is occasional press releases where something would happen. There would be an instigating, things would get so bad that something would happen, someone would get hurt, and then someone would come out and say, we're against anti-Semitism. But I never saw, if you saw that certain terminology was, riling people up, if you saw, certain things were happening that were, kind of riling people up, how would you
Is it the terminology riling people up, or is it the images coming out of Gaza that's riling them up?
Against an innocent 18-year-old kid?
No, we're not talking about against. We're just talking about what's riling people up.
I think that if the images, whatever is being used as the instigating thing to take that out on the Jews on campus, then it is wrong regardless of what that instigating thing is. It just happens to be that chant, the Intifada chant, is the thing that keeps on coming up.
So you think Jews are targeted because of the chant?
I think that it's like a drum roll in a war. They could use a different word, and if that word was being used to target, then it would be that. I think that there is a tone, a toxic tone, a level of heightened.
So you think they're too upset?
What?
Those students were too upset.
I think that the tone is being. I think that you are using tone, and you're using a specific term to target Jews. Yes. And that is the issue here.
I think you are overlooking the power of the image of a dead innocent child.
I'm not, though, because I agree that this is a problem. But I think we also agree...
No, but are you... Think about it for a second. This kid had a name. They're tiny. This big. If you see a picture of this kid's head gone... Awful, 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 awful images coming out of Gaza on a daily basis. And every morning you wake up, you turn on your phone, you check, you have got a notification on your Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, you open it up, boom, dead baby.
The thing is, Jews had that. We had that after October 7th. And I think that it is on the protest leaders to take that information and figure out a way to make the point without having it cross a line.
But let's just follow this train of thought, because I think it's really valuable here. I think that is sufficient to rile people up. I don't know if the reason those innocent Jewish students were targeted because of a chant. I don't think you know that either. I don't think there was one specific chant that made anyone a target. I do know that those images are very, very, very powerful, and they do something to you when you see them. I think when you have a massive group together mourning that, and then being told, oh, actually, that's a human shield. Oh, if you're so upset, maybe you should be more upset about what happened on October 7th.
Let me just say, here's a part we definitely agree on. Mm-hmm. I think that my frequent issue with the right-wing, not even right-wing, like some of just like these super, super hard in the paint extremists, like Israeli side of this, is that a lot of their tactics involves like dismissing or belittling actual issues that come out of, I think that this whole like the aid situation.
Hollywood. I wrote a very thorough piece.
Let me tell you,
I spent 3 days with the guy who came up with Pallywood.
It actually is an issue to me because, first of all, it's not right. But even if it was right,
it's disgusting.
I'm like, that it's still bad there. So it's like, what is the point that you're actually trying to like make? Are you trying to say that things are totally fine in Gaza? That's not accurate. I remember that a couple of.
Do you condemn all people who use the phrase and believe in Pallywood?
Yes.
Including the state of Israel?
We want to talk about how much I disagree with Israel on this? Oh, boy, howdy.
It's their official policy, man. They tweet about it all the time.
I don't, but I'm also against the government. You know what I mean? Like, I'm with you on this. I think that the people that use that Hollywood thing to say, like, oh, they're making it up, it's not that bad. I remember a couple of months ago, there was a guy that did a video called Apartheid Hunters, where he dressed as Steve Irwin, and he went into the West Bank with an Australian accent. It was like, oh, I'm going to try to find the apartheid here.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me. That's absolutely fucking crazy. And I think that our side does a terrible job at making sure at that stuff, at belittling and acting like it's not an issue out there.
Does the pro-Israel side do enough to police their own so that people who are pro-Palestine don't get hurt in this country?
I think you are seeing. I think one thing is that it is just not by the numbers as big of an issue from the Jewish community. I want to just specify here, if we're talking about the ICE and the roundups and the canary, all that stuff. Like, yes, that is very, very wrong. Jew hate database. I think that doesn't do a good job for the Jews. I think that like all that stuff, right?
There was that woman in Crown Heights. I think, did you see the video?
Which one?
She's walking home. She's masked up. She's covering her face because people started filming her. And then a mass of Jewish New Yorkers just beat the shit out of her.
Yeah, I don't deny that happens. And I don't deny that it happens on the other side also.
So in that same sense, do you think it's fair then for a political candidate, for me to withhold my vote of a political candidate who I think is doing all these great things, but they just didn't go hard enough on the Jewish New Yorkers?
Let me just say, I am not withholding my vote yet because I think that we are November. Today was an interesting day because Zohran apparently last night during some meeting that was a behind closed doors meeting said something about that he would what was it? There was some quote. It was
I didn't see it.
It would not disregard, or he would. Oh man, what was the word? Like he would just ask people not to use the phrase. Basically, that was all, discourage.
Discourage.
Yeah,
I think I did see that this morning.
He would discourage, the term for it, right? Like that. To me, I'm like, these are like little breadcrumbs.
People who are pro-Palestine are going to hate.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing here. I'm so curious. So how do you think, what if he does come out and say like, guys, like, you guys can protest, but I would like you guys not to use globalize the intifada. And I think that there is like an issue in the ranks, would
tank his support on that community.
But like, why? Like, isn't that not like,
for the reason that I explained earlier, you are beating up on a community that's already being beaten up.
But is he already
punching down?
Yeah, but isn't he also beating up on the other side of this, of the people that do have an issue with what, with the protests and how they've kind of like come.
The one on the same side as ICE.
No, I'm not on the same side. But that's the issue. Is always you can't put me in the same side as ICE.
The idea that these kids are not being policed enough it is the same side as ICE. It is.
No, you can't. I'm sorry, but you can't, because there are people that are on the side.
Hey, if you want to characterize a movement by the worst people, that's the territory that we're in, man.
Yeah, but he has he also is in a position of power that affects that. Next year, if something happens and I'm not going to say what side does what, but if there's an issue with the Palestinian kid and an Israeli kid that happens on college campuses next year, he as mayor has to handle that. That's his job. And that involves him coming out fairly and coming out with, justly and making the right decision there. To this point,
would the condemnation that he had for the people who were shot outside the Holocaust Museum be sufficient?
No. Are we talking about a case? Well, once again, not predicting the future or something, but this is a case where a pro-Palestinian protester would injure a pro-Israeli kid, right?
Right.
It would actually, if he was to release that kind of statement again, it would be a fucking shit show. He would have to come out there and say, I am against this brand of activism for Palestinian rights. Like, I do think that he would have to say that.
Wow. That's a lot.
Just like if
that's a very high bar.
Let me just say, let's say some fucking MAGA guy went out there and shot a Palestinian kid because Bibi came to him in a dream and he was trying to appease Dream Bibi.
Like those 2 students in Vermont.
Yes, if that was to happen, if the 2 students in Vermont were shot in New York and Eric Adams, was our mayor, he would have to come out there and say extremism from the right is a problem. These kids were shot because they were Palestinian, visibly. I think they were wearing keffiyehs, if I'm not mistaken.
They were not on their way home from a protest. They were just wearing keffiyehs.
They're visibly Muslim, visibly. I don't want to say Muslim because I think like the everyone visibly pro-Palestinian, right?
Not even.
Eric Adams would have to. Wait, they were identifiably in some capacity.
Yeah, but keffiyeh is like how like the Celts have all these different patterns.
Yeah, but weren't they shot because they were like coming from like a pro-Palestinian something?
They were coming home from studying.
No, but like weren't they shot because of?
They were wearing keffiyeh. But a keffiyeh is a cultural.
No, but I'm saying
dress.
like the person that shot them, were they doing like we're doing this for Israel? Was that not like part of it?
I feel like it was. I don't think I know that.
I thought it was.
I assumed it, but I don't want to be irresponsible and say that I know for sure.
All right, well, let's just, for the argument's sake, let's like say if that was to happen, Eric Adams would have to fucking come out and say like, this is wrong. The right wing needs to rein in their thing. Here's what I'm going to do with the $100 million that I am planning.
Do you remember that case in Florida where a Jewish man shot another Jewish man because they thought that Jewish man that they shot was Palestinian?
Yeah, I do. And let me just say,
the Palestinian who got shot went on the internet and was like, "Fucking Palestinians."
Yeah, it sucks. It is. You're talking about the most complicated thing of all time, which is also, I think, like the reason why this conversation that we are having needs to happen is because once again, our sides. How often does this happen? Like, how often are the sides getting in the same room, identifying the lines? I know that I kind of like learned a little bit more from here. I think that you maybe didn't learn. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you or anything, but like until we're able to sit in the same room and like at least have the conversation, then nothing will change completely. Mm-hmm. And
I'm just happy to hear that you're anti-occupation.
I'm not anti-occupation.
No, but that's where the bar is.
What do you mean? What do you mean occupation here?
You want the occupation to end?
In what capacity? For Israel to go away?
You want the Israeli military to stop physically assaulting and killing Palestinians because they can.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
Especially at West Bank. And we'll go by this. And you think the hostages should get released.
Yeah, all the hostages need to get the fuck out.
There it is.
Here's what I think happens. I personally, I hope and I want there to be peace. I do think that peace is impossible so long as the Israeli government, who holds all the cards right now, continues to insist that their security depends on the occupation of others. I think that is the cause of all of it. Everything that we're talking about now is symptom. Including Hamas is a symptom of the Israeli idea that this land belongs to them and them alone, and that the right of return will somehow eliminate their project, and therefore it is unacceptable and a non-starter. We're talking about people here. Mm-hmm. Unless that is rooted out, there will never be peace.
I agree.
There you go.
I think that there are so many bad actors that are involved in figuring out how to. I mean, there's not going to be an end to the war. Like, it's just we're going to slowly bleed into the next fucking thing. I think everyone has their own things that they're trying to get out of it. And until the war ends, and which no one wants it to end. The people in charge don't want it to end.
By the way, let me say one thing.
Go, yeah.
If you have that position, I know many people who would think of you and characterize you as anti-Zionist.
Yeah, totally, and they're fucking idiots. And I think that people also
That's like how far we are from like understanding what the other means.
I know,
what they say.
The thing is, I don't even like argue that the meaning of Zion. To me, Zionism just means like, hey, Israel exists, and it exists, and they're a country that exists, and I don't think that we have a. I think the second that like the Bible is brought into this, I'm just like, all right, we're not having the same fucking conversation like at all. I think that not most people. I don't know. I think that this is not going to get solved. I don't think I have a very like negative view of what happens next for the region. I honest to God think that what's going to happen is that the northern part of Gaza is going to get cut off from the bottom part and given to Trump, and then
that was like one of the first things I had.
Totally. And you know who's doing that? Shitty people in the government who have an ability to. And why can they do this? Because they were never reined in. Because Biden was never like.
The percentage of Israelis who support that idea?
I got no idea, man. I wouldn't even be able to.
Did you not see that UPenn survey?
What does UPenn say?
UPenn did a survey, a very detailed survey, and they found that the vast majority of Israelis believe that not only should all Arabs, Palestinians be expelled from the land, but also from within Israel proper.
Can I just say, I don't want to argue this because I don't know the study. I will. Here's what I will.
Find it for you,
only because I don't want to on the spot try to decide if I trust the study or not.
Okay.
What I will say is that
I will send it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at any point you can choose or choose not to.
Totally.
But it's a real survey. The findings are terrifying, and I think if you were to believe the survey, and I don't know what experience you have with like studying surveys to see if they're.
I used to be a journalist. I used to. Yeah. I mean, granted, a lot of it.
You're going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
If it's like a scientific study or not, but the findings I think will reveal a lot about how much Israel as a society has moved since October 7th.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're also dealing with a nation that, not to discount anything that's happening in Gaza, you're dealing with a nation that has been through a shit ton. And I think a lot of them had a...
Thank you for saying not to discount anything from Gaza.
What?
Thank you for adding that. Like.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know a lot of Israelis and Zionists who would never go that far.
No,
in fact, I got an email 2 days ago, or not 2 days, maybe like 4 days ago now, but somebody saying that the Palestinians could never, ever, with all caps, understand what was happening to Israelis.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid. Yeah. This is also, for one of the reasons why October 7th happened was because Bibi had taken his eyes off of the borders and moved it to the protesters that were happening in Tel Aviv because he was trying to strip away like Supreme Court, stuff like that. When I think of Israel, when I think of people that there was like an effort to try to find a way to coexist in that region. There were a lot of people that made their whole life's mission to try to figure out a way for the Palestinians and for the Israel. There were a lot of people that were working by the unfortunate reality is a lot of people by the kibbutzes and stuff. They were involved in that, in those efforts. There are people out there that wanted
something.
On
October 7th was somebody who used to escort Gazan children with cancer.
Totally. And there's so many people that I think were like that. And Israel, man, it is hard to even begin to try to figure out where politically Israel is going to go next, but I hope to God, what? Well, I hope to God that that thing happens next. Israel has to make a decision. Eventually, Bibi is just not going to be here anymore. Like eventually, whether it's next year or whether it's in 15 years, and at that point, there needs to be a decision that's made where the Israelis have to decide to move away from this kind of, from this kind of governing. On the other side, there also needs to be a discussion made about like what to do with the Palestinians and how to get them to a place where they're able to govern themselves, which is a 300-year project that I doubt within our lifetimes we're going to see like a conclusion to.
I think we're going to see it.
Really? That's optimistic. What do you think happens next? What do you think goes on?
I'm an idealist.
Nice.
And so I do this constantly. Maybe after like growing up Muslim after 9/11, you're just like always like you're forcing yourself to see like how things could work out, even though they never do. In my mind,
I'm a Met fan, so
Yeah, exactly. I like the Mets too.
Yeah.
I hate the Yankees. I hate anybody who wins all the time.
Those Zionists? No, I'm joking.
No, honestly, I just hate all those teams. Here's what I feel. I think the idea of Zionism is going to change. I think they're going to abandon this ethnocracy that they've been trying to accomplish they have accomplished. I think at some point they are going to have to, maybe they won't reckon it, but they're going to accept at some point that their safety is tied to the safety of the Palestinians, and that the longer that they continue to try to militarily squash people until they love them, which is just against human nature and it just doesn't happen that way, I think eventually Israeli society will come to understand that they are Palestinians, and Palestinians will have to come to understand that they are Israeli. As weird as that sounds.
No, there's... Yeah.
But they just need to be one people and have their own two states, but they have to understand that they are one people. And I do think that within our lifetime, there will be the day when the Israeli will jump to the defense of a Palestinian because they understand, wait, that's my people too.
Yeah.
The reason why we're here is because the Israeli project began with, hey, actually, we need our own place, so these people here need to get the fuck out. And that's the reason why they were attacked when they became a country, because they declared it at a time when people who fled were trying to return. And
there's a whole other.
It's the truth, man. It's the truth.
Wait. There's multiple sides to this. You know, like the partition plan was there was a partition plan, and then Britain pulled out, and then all of a sudden you had Israel, and there were the other Arab nations in that area who were supposed to take Israel, and then during that course, the Palestinians were moved out because the countries were like, oh, give us a week
because there was a war, and wars create refugees.
Totally, and then Israel won a war. That was a surprise to everybody.
You're the wrong ethnicity, so you can't come back in. Also, we're going to be importing all different kinds of people from around the world because they checked the right box. I think that level of exclusion based on ethnicity is how you get what we have today, which is an ethno-state. And I think the longer we exist as a world, the more indefensible it becomes to have an ethno-state that is militarily occupying people who are the wrong ethnicity.
Listen, this is the part where we actually probably do agree. I think that we disagree on the origins and the reason why certain people ended up there. But
semantical.
Exactly. Where I think like we're at a point now where at the end of the day, I don't know. I think once again, 95%, 5%. I think that we definitely, I think we've done some good work here. It's also, I will say this, 1,000,000 degrees in
I'm also,
this
I should say,
apartment.
I'm not Palestinian. But
no, you said you're Egyptian, right?
I'm Egyptian.
Did I call you Palestinian?
No. I'm just saying that because I have no right to say like what is the right solution for Palestinians.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing is that
I'm not the person you need to sit with to like really have that conversation.
No, and the interesting thing about this, I've always thought is like, what countries are responsible for the day after plan? And it can't be Israel and America. It can't be. Which means
it's got to be Israel, and it has to be Israel alone.
Yeah. What? Wait, what?
For the day after plan.
To build a government in Gaza? You want Israel to do that?
They need to reckon with the fact that they're the ones who are responsible for those people.
Oh, they need to paying monetary stuff. I'm all with you. I think America owes the biggest fucking check of all time to this situation. I'm talking about the idea of like, what is Palestinians? Like, what is next?
They need self-governance.
Exactly. But I'm saying that like Israel.
And they need the right of return.
But I'm saying like Israel, though, shouldn't be involved in that process. Israel cannot be involved in setting up the government.
No. If Israel's not involved in this process, it's going to repeat.
But you think there should be? You should think there should be the sole entity involved in that process?
Yeah, along with the Palestinian people. Because look, Palestinians.
I hear what you're saying.
Are
hear
not
what you're saying.
Egyptian, and they're not Jordanian, and they're not Lebanese. They're their own people.
But
so you can't have Kuwait come in and decide what happens to the Palestinians.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but isn't the way that like nation government starting, doesn't it usually involve like other countries getting on board and being like, all right, here, let's write out your constitution. Okay. And then everyone is gonna, I'm just saying that it can't be.
Well, the country of Israel does not have a constitution.
No, it's not. We have 85 loud Jews in a Knesset in Jerusalem.
So you don't need a constitution to be considered a state.
But do you need like other countries to kind of like get involved and say like, here, let me help you out? Like,
you need
you
other
need
countries
pipes
to not have ambition over your land.
Yeah.
Which the country of Israel right now does have ambition over all of the land.
Yes, but then you can also make the argument that like Saudi Arabia has a benefit to ignoring the Palestinian problem because they want to get like American.
Saudi Arabia is fucking Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but I'm saying like all of the countries there have
they're different people.
But I'm saying that like but they can offer support, they can offer help, they can offer at some point political help because at some point, you got the Kushner money and you got the UAE money.
The monarchy of Saudi Arabia is not interested in peace.
Yeah.
Look at what they did to Yemen.
No one is interested in peace in that area. Like,
and
none
that's why
of
the
them.
Palestinians are screwed. And
Yes.
that's why the only
Yes.
way it's going to get solved is if Israel, as a government, accepts that the restricting the right of return is immoral, illegal, and also that they need to have a stable Palestine state nearby to avoid being constantly attacked.
Yeah, I agree. I super agree. I super agree. I think that this was a problem that was left to fester. But also, I think we're going in circles at this point with this. Yeah. All right. You have any last... How are you feeling after this? Where are you at?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Let me show you something.
Go.
I brought a book,
Oh, my God.
but I can't give it to you. It's my last book.
Oh, my God.
And I also wrote a
Do you did... I was trying to figure out if you were just, like, stumping for one of your friends out
No,
there.
I wrote a book.
Wait, you wrote a book?
I wrote a book.
Let me just say, adorable.
Thank you.
Look at that. What is your book about?
It's about being Muslim and Arab in America, and then having kids, and then trying to fulfill your parents' wildest dreams by maintaining that connection and heritage in the children.
Is it funny?
It's funny as hell.
Is Baba... What is Baba? Because it's called Becoming Baba.
Baba is just dad.
Okay.
Like, this is a picture of my parents when
Hey.
they got married in Jersey.
Oh, my God.
You know what I mean? This picture of my friends when I was in school.
One thing we can both agree on is that Jersey is the Holy Land.
Yeah, it
You know,
is.
so-
Yo, we call it New Jeru. Have you ever heard it called that?
New Jeru
Yeah.
in Jersey? Oh, that's kind of funny.
We call it New Jerusalem.
Oh, my God.
I know, man. Honestly.
Was it hard getting... Can I ask you, who published it? What's the...
Doubleday.
And was it hard getting people on board for this kind of thing? Or
I think because I have like a track record of writing that was very easy and simple because they were like, oh, you're a writer.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm a writer. And they
Where-
were like, cool.
Where can people check out some of your... Let's get to the pitch part of this. Where can people check out your stuff?
I would recommend people go to Aymann.com. It's spelled AYMANN.com.
Nice. I'll say...
I have everything there. I did a whole series of videos called Who's Afraid of Aymann? And I think they're evergreen because what I do is I talk to people who are Islamophobic about where their ideas of Islamophobia came from. And it's extremely revealing. And what I was trying to do with that project was complicate the way people think about ethnicities and religions in a place like America where people, more often than not, are responding to their environment more than they're responding to their holy scriptures.
Oh, I super agree. Money is pushing it all.
Yep.
You also write for Slate, if I'm not mistaken.
I write for Slate Magazine.
Look at that. Check that out.
Oh, yeah. I've written a lot of great pieces about the conflict. I've interviewed a lot of really interesting people who have, I think, really... They come into this conflict in very interesting ways. For example, I interviewed Peter Barnard, who I think...
J Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the... J Street has an interesting... J Street is such an interesting section of Judaism because I think they get shit on a ton. Some of it is valid. A ton of it is literally just AIPAC funding anti blogs, anti J Street blogs against them. Yeah,
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's fair. There's a lot of money invested in keeping Palestinian grief out of the spotlight here. So yeah, I've talked to doctors who've returned from Gaza. I've also interviewed scholars who are based and live in Israel. People who are Haifa University, for example, who I'm continuing to talk to all the time. Yeah, I interview everybody, and I try to get as many different kinds of opinions into one space as possible, because I think if the reader comes to your piece and leaves feeling like they understand it better than the back of their hand, you failed as a journalist.
Yeah.
Everything is way more complicated and sophisticated than you would imagine, and so that's how I feel like journalism should be written.
Has there been any... Okay, so have you ever talked to someone... This is the last question I'll ask, because once again, it is 95 degrees in this situation.
Oh, yeah. No, now I feel right at home.
I'm... this feels like you said Egypt by the Sudanese border, right?
Yeah.
This is... I tried to make it Sudanese.
This feels good.
Here. Yeah.
All I
This
need is a
like
hot drink, and I'm ready.
I have some sand that I'm going to put some coffee into later that we'll get going.
Do you really?
Oh, no, you can... My sand coffee maker, or whatever it's called.
Dude.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Those...
A buddy of mine has one.
It's just a pot of sand that's on...
Think of it like a big hot plate.
Yeah.
With a little crevice to put sand in. And they literally heat up what we call the kanaka.
Yeah.
The tiny little pot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it works perfect.
That is actually crazy.
It's fucking awesome.
I kind of want one. Oh, it's
I bet
so
they have it
fucking
on
good.
Amazon.
Wait, that's actually crazy. Hot sand coffee. If I could get hot sand coffee into this apartment,
Hot sand. I don't know what to even call
it would change. It would change everything. Has there? I guess last question I want to ask you is: has there ever, through your interviews that you've done with people that you maybe don't agree with, or from like a side?
That's what it looks like.
That is crazy. How much is that?
I don't know.
Oh, it's $2,000. Worth
really?
it. Worth every on Amazon. That's
I bet
the
they
most
have smaller
expensive
ones.
thing on.
I bet they have smaller.
Yeah, that is like a
Yeah,
five.
look, they have like a one, and see that one even
Oh,
has
just
like
one for the
electricity.
road.
Yeah, that one's like straight for your table.
Well, I don't know if you can see this at home. It's the sand. You put the coffee into the cup, and then you put the cup into the sand.
You're
it,
gonna
boils
add a
over.
picture, I think, and add a link.
You know what? If you do Birthright, if you do any like of the Jewish like yeshiva, I didn't do Birthright. I did a yeshiva out there for a year. At some point, they take you to live in a Bedouin tent for a day, and it's a whole big experience. You get to cosplay as a Bedouin.
Don't throw that in my face,
Listen.
man. They would never let me in.
To the Bedouin cosplay?
No, into Israel.
And you are 100% valid on that problem.
My sister tried to go.
What happened?
What do you think happened?
They were like, "Welcome." Not, but what side did she get stopped on?
Tel Aviv.
So what'd they do with her? What happens if you wait? So she was coming from America or was coming from Egypt?
Coming from America.
Did they stop her in the airport and just send her back?
Nope.
They put her in prison?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a
you know
fucking
why?
problem. What?
Tell me why.
Tweets?
Nope.
Wait. Okay, tell me.
She was the only person wearing hijab in her group.
Yeah.
She was a Harvard law student, and she was going on a trip with her Israeli citizen Palestinian professor who organized this trip. Only two people were stopped. Her, who wears hijab, she's like identifiably Muslim and Arab, and her professor who has an Israeli passport.
When was this?
It was written about. Let me Google it. I think it was like 2008.
I don't deny that this stuff. Oh, this is a little bit ago. I mean, they've
They've been doing this for a long time.
I think something also that maybe we can agree on this little part at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people came into this conflict within the past 650 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that there's actual people that have been living in this thing for like a minute.
There have been people sitting in Israeli prisons without charge for that long.
And there have been people on the Israeli side that have been fighting against this for years and years. Not to discount once again, I'm just saying that there is a group of people on both sides that have an actual connection to what is happening, that have valid concerns, that are often seeing those concerns. But what I'm saying is that they're often. This is great. Can you actually send me that? I'm kind of curious about that. What I'm saying is that like frequently, like with Trump and with bad actors, on the other side of this, people without a connection to the land and the people and this region have come in and taken what they want out of it and have used it in like terrible, ways to kind of push their own thing here. That, for instance, is awful. And, it's...
We had no idea where she was because they didn't give her access to a lawyer.
That's fucking crazy. That is absolutely fucking crazy. And
She's an American.
And the thing is...
She was born in Jersey.
And if that's 2010, that means that you had Obama fail her, and then you had Trump fail her, and then you had Biden fail. I mean, I assume that she was out by that point. But you've had just like... president after president after president go in there and fail over and over and over. I don't disagree with you on this. I'm with you on all this. Yeah.
But it's every day. I think that's the thing that I think people who are pro-Israel don't acknowledge is like the level of dehumanization, the toll that level of conflict and violence that never ends for the Palestinian side, I think, it's insulting when you say there was peace on October 6th, which I hear a lot. It's like, why would Hamas like blindside and as awful as Hamas is, there was no peace for Palestinians on October 6th. By that point, it was already the most violent, deadly year for Palestinian kids. And that, I think, did you see that article? It was published on October 6th.
Here's the thing. I don't disagree with any of this stuff. I have always. Israel is destabilized because there was president after president after president that just wrote a blank check and didn't. I think what's crazy about like Bernie Sanders, for instance, is that you can make the argument that he's like anti-Israel or whatever. What he was actually asking for a very long time was just to add stipulations with the check that was being sent out to, that was being sent out to Bibi. Like, it was crazy that there weren't stipulations already attached to that stuff. I think there's very valid, logical questions, and there's a way
These
to go about
encampments,
it.
all they wanted was for their universities to divest from war profiteering.
But then they crossed the line.
But no, that was like, I'm just saying, like, yeah, you're saying on the tangents and on the outskirts, some awful shit was going down. Can't deny that.
But they didn't.
Nobody should get hurt for just being who they are on campus. It's true. Anybody who hurt someone else in that kind of context should be arrested and tried for their crime of assault or whatever they were doing. At the same time, they made their intentions clear. Every major news report about it left that out for some reason, that these people had very sensible demands, which was they didn't want their tuition being sent to in the form of bombs to the country of Israel that was using it to kill innocent people.
Here's what I will say, just on the divestment part of this. There is an actual thing here where you can't some of these colleges have legitimate programs that were attached to Technion and Tel Aviv University and stuff like that. I once again don't disagree that majority of these protests, but I'm saying this that is that not a PR problem here where it's if there was more of an effort, if there was more of something to try to curtail this problem that arose, and it was actually there and was actually being handled, then isn't that also a PR problem? Isn't part of the frustration there that if this was actually being handled, then why was it just not talked about that it was handled?
But you're so close to, I think, now saying, oh, it's just a PR problem.
Oh, it's not though. But I'm saying that what I'm saying is that it is a PR. What I'm saying that it is not just a PR problem, because if it was just a PR problem, let me take that back. I'm totally confused on what I was about my line of thought. What I'm saying, here's what I say. It's a PR problem because if they were actually doing things to solve the problem, like you're saying that they were doing, then I think that they should have done a better job at going out there and being here's what we did, XYZ thing. But then the other side of it is
anti-Semitism, like they said, but they have to do it in a way that I think is
that they have to go out,
break through.
Not just words. It had to come out there and be we are getting rid of XYZ person because they did too much. But I'm saying
they did that. I'm pretty sure.
But they didn't do it enough. They did not tone down the rhetoric. It did not get toned down.
And now we're back to that same argument I made where I was is it the rhetoric that was riling people up, or was it the images coming out of Gaza?
But then the protest leaders should have said, hey, I get that you're riled up because of the images in Gaza, but you should not be taking it out like you have been taking it out on just random Jewish kids who are identifiable because they're walking back from a Hillel Friday night dinner.
And we don't know what they did or what they said. I mean, reporting has been done on that, actually. I should have checked that before I came. On what people in encampments did to curtail the anti-Semitism.
Listen, if you have information, I would love to hear it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What? I feel like I can't type it one hand. Yeah. See, this is the beautiful thing, man. We're seekers. We're looking for nothing.
I'm kind of curious. Well, this isn't. Every time that I've looked this up, I've only found press releases out there where they've said we condemn it. There was never an action that was taken.
What would be a satisfactory action? You just said it was if they just had a meeting and they were actually, we need to stop doing this. So you're saying instead of saying it to the press that this wasn't welcome, they need to say it to themselves? I think
I think a big thing would be identifying why this problem was happening. Well, I mean, why is this problem happening in your opinion?
I think because when you have a movement made up of hundreds of people, you're bound to have a few select people in there who are in there for the wrong reasons, are willing to do awful things. Do I think that those few people ought to be used to characterize the entire movement? No. But I'm willing to say that, they exist.
But then isn't that on the leaders, though, where they saw that it was becoming a problem where people were focusing on this thing? Was it not on them to be to take a bigger stance or do whatever?
I still think that the people in the encampments were not focused on anti-Semitism. They were focused on Gaza, and they were focused on where their tuition was going.
Yeah, but then it doesn't matter if they were focused on it or not, because the outcome of it was that it ended up being weaponized against these kids.
Yeah.
What did you find? Anything?
So what I've been doing lately is I've been using ChatGPT instead of Google.
Let me tell you right now, next biggest fight that the world is going to have is that for years and years and years, SEO dominance was the thing, people trying to Google. There is a fight right now happening in ChatGPT and AI chatbots about what to do when someone goes so what happened in Israel? Mm-hmm. And then whatever response that, that comes next. Yeah.
Because that's dangerous.
Super, super dangerous.
No, I ask it like instead of using Google for like a prompt and like, hey, can you give me a list of like how many times people did this or whatever. Yeah. Like for example, for this, I was like, give me a list of all of the condemnations that Zohran Mamdani did of anti-Semitism. Much more productive answers than say Google searching, where you'll get like one article.
Absolutely.
Whereas ChatGPT will give you like, here's the quotes and here's the articles that they link to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I think what I'm going to try now. I just asked it right now. The prompt I gave it was, what did encampment protesters do to curtail anti-Semitism in encampments? Right, still thinking.
It's crazy how we went from not using AI to people using AI and not talking about it to like over the past like 3 months. I feel like everyone's just like, hey, we're using it.
And here's how I feel about it. If you're using it to generate, you're probably in the wrong somehow, and it's probably unethical because what you're doing is you're borrowing stuff. And in my experience, it takes more work to edit than it is to just write.
Yeah.
Like for example, with my book, I was thinking, I tried it for like a minute. I was like, let me just see if I can't like get an outline for something to write. Yeah. And by the time I got to an outline that I agreed with, I spent more time on it than I would have just writing an outline.
Yeah, I remember when like video editing, AI video editing came out, I was spending more time re-editing the video after they had edited it. Also, I mean, the coldest take of all time is that it makes me sound like emotionless.
Okay. Yeah, no, and it's not well written either.
No.
And they do this thing a lot where it's like, it didn't just do this, it did this, but it's just trying to up the word count.
Yes.
I would not recommend it for that, but as a search tool for searching the internet.
No. Molto bene.
Beautiful.
Okay.
It's still thinking on the second response, but the first response, and I don't know how satisfactory this is going to be for you. Should I just read it, or do you want to read it?
Yeah, wait. Read it.
Okay. Organizers asked campers to review and abide by written rules that explicitly prohibited anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, racist, or harassing speech behavior. Some required sign-ins, orientations at entry points. UCLA and other encampments described these as, quote, community agreements or, quote, community care rules. Northwestern negotiated Deering Meadow Agreement similarly reaffirmed that anti-Semitic and all anti-Muslim and Arab acts would not be tolerated. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they set up internal safety de-escalation teams like marshals, community safety and peacekeepers to monitor conduct, intervene in heated moments.
I'm curious about
and discourage or remove outside agitators or fringe actors in introducing hateful material.
Okay, here's why. But this is what I'm saying. I don't know, one, at what point any of the stuff was implemented. Okay. Two, it seems vague when they're talking about like, oh, we said we would be against it. Like, of course they'll be against it. I don't know like what did they do, you know?
Yeah. So this says,
also, what is the sourcing for this? That's the other thing.
Says the New York City Council, The Nation, Northwestern University, and ABC7.
Okay.
So here, I clicked on The Nation one because I like The Nation. This is an article called "The Student Encampments Aren't a Danger to Jews, but the Crackdown Is." It was written by Hadass Tier. I don't know if that's a Jewish name or not. There's a lot of overlap. Hadass Tier.
Hadass. I'm gonna go with Jew. Hadass.
Usually they're the best equipped to write these kinds of pieces. In the same way that like I would trust a Muslim to write about like Islamophobia.
No, totally.
But the Nation could be a little voicey. Okay, in the middle of the lawn, surrounded by a low buzz of students sitting in study circles, making art, pointing out a hawk that flew nearby, working on laptops, I met Atesh, a Columbia student who asked to be identified only by his first name for fear of reprisal. He told me how meaningful it was for him to participate in this first Passover Seder with about 100 other students and professors on the lawn. There, Jewish students had led their peers in songs and rituals. The Passover Seder is a Jewish tradition that celebrates liberation and is rooted in community, inquiry, and questioning. It was a fitting celebration for the encampment.
It also ends. You know how it ends?
How?
It ends with going next year in Jerusalem. So let's.
I doubt that they said that. I mean, but like they should be in Jerusalem. Jews have a very undeniable attachment there. The issue is when they say that only we have an attachment to Jerusalem.
I'm there. I'm with you on that.
So no, it's like I mean. Yeah, we're on the same.
I don't know. Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know if they've actually taken this actions and stuff like that. what month was this even? Like, what was the
This
date
was
of this?
from May 2024.
May 2024. Okay.
So right before I think this is like right after actually the raid, right? When was the raid? Wasn't it March?
What raid?
That
Oh,
might
the
be
Columbia
raid.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It was
Past
like,
600
it
days
was
have
like
been...
June, because I think it was like right before graduation.
Yeah, it was around. I remember because certain people were afraid that they were not going to be graduating, so that would make sense. This is probably around then. I mean, this is probably also when it got like, yeah, go.
Relevant.
Go, yes.
The author in their voice says, "I am an Israeli-born Jew who has been involved in Palestine activism for over 20 years." So I think they should probably put that
Yeah,
at the
but
top.
like once again, like I have this person speak for the entire, population. And the question is that we're trying to answer here is what actions were taken by the protest leaders to stamp down some of this?
So it sounds like the Jewish members, the Jewish person who's like leading this person is walking them through it. They said, but they felt an obligation to do so because they're of the ways in which the quote safety of Jewish students has become disingenuous rallying cry of everyone from liberal college presidents to MAGA-aligned politicians.
She said this? Hadass Tur?
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem is that there's a bias in whoever's writing this because
That's why I pointed out that
Yeah.
she's been involved in Palestine activism for 20 years.
But I think that you can be both here. Like, I don't know. There's got to be a way to do this without like pissing everyone off on every side. Like, there has to be.
I'm just reading the original source because in the ChatGPT prompt it said that they did police people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this article gets into like why it's unfair to discount the existence of Jews as part of this movement.
I don't discount them. I'm like they don't speak for any majority. I don't know.
I don't think anybody said that they do. I think that
yeah.
the reason why I brought them up was to say that in order to characterize this movement as being inherently anti-Jewish, you must explain to me why Jews were allowed to take on leadership roles within this movement.
But then that goes back to the thing where it's inherently Jewish because regardless of the religious connection here, they
had kosher food apparently.
Yeah, but once again, it's like little things that don't equate to an entire livable community. Like the Jewish life cycle was not, fully respected for like the modern Orthodox kids, or like if I was like an Orthodox kid or a Hasidic kid, I don't think I'd be able to get like a minyan that I would agree with in the encampment.
A lot of Hasids are pro-Palestine.
No, that's not true.
Not?
There is a tiny, small, I think it's a 800-person faction called Naturi Karta that shows up to protest at all these events. They are a tiny subset. I don't even, I can actually ask ChatGPT what the entire.
Well, before we get there, let's go through this list of what else they did. They adopted de-escalation, non-harassment rules, like do not engage signage and volunteer marshals to reduce confrontations where hate speech might arise. Columbia's law saw a large Passover Shabbat, blah, blah, blah. You don't care about that. Jewish students in multiple encampments describe these rituals as creating safer, explicitly anti-Semitic space. They ran teach-ins, educational sessions on anti-Semitism, often led by Jewish students or faculty, allies, to help participants identify anti-Semitic tropes, distinguish anti-Zionism from anti-Semitism.
Okay, so here's the question. It's May 2024, right? So this is last year. So this is one calendar school year later. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. You asked me if they did anything at all. I don't know what they did.
But
so we were
even if here's the thing, even if they did something, like even if they are saying that they are doing something, it didn't work. Like,
and that's I think you're totally entitled to feel that way. And you could say that they did all this, and that's not how you would have done it, and that you probably would have handled it better. But
here's the thing. We are getting this off of an article written by someone who had like a little bit of a bias, so I can't speak to what actual actions they took. All I know is that it didn't work. And you're able to tell that by the fact that things did not get better last year. In fact, they got worse for Palestinian kids, more so.
Yeah.
They got way worse for Palestinian kids.
Off of the premise of we need to protect these Jewish kids, so we're going to allow ICE to round up these students on campus.
Yeah, it's a bitch, ain't it?
Mahmoud Khalid was taken off of campus.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people felt very uncomfortable.
They used interfaith empathy building programming and shared chance messages.
It didn't work.
It didn't work, but it's fine. You could believe that. Well, all I'm saying is...
what is this? I can believe it or not. Things did not get better last year.
Yeah, but that's not the question that we're asking. I'm not trying to assert that things became perfect. I'm asserting that
there was an effort there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you know what?
And Jewish students, whether or not you believe in their, right to be Jewish in that space. I don't know how to characterize what you were saying earlier, but whether or not you believe it or whether or not you think it's sufficient, it appears that there was some effort to curtail anti-Semitism within the ranks. I think you're entitled to feel like it didn't go far enough. I'm actually upset that I didn't know this ahead of time, and I, should have looked it up better. I should have read that piece. But I'm not the type of person to like read those kinds of pieces, anyways.
No, I
prefer my sources to be unimpeachable.
On what?
Unimpeachable.
Listen,
like for example, when I wrote my book, my wife is like, "You're getting all these great reviews." I'm like, I don't care until my ex like says actually the writing is pretty good. Then I'll be like, okay, it's good.
Listen, I'm gonna read it, and I'm,
I think
I'm not your ex, but you can.
Do you want to look at the passage first that triggered the Zionists?
Please.
Wait, what's the right way to frame that? I don't want to use the word Zionist.
It's just
implicate you.
Yeah. But I am a Zionist though. It's like just Israelis, Jews. Just if there's one thing that I could kind of take away from this, or
they weren't Israeli though. They weren't Israeli. They were American.
Were they just like Israel?
And that guy who wore the shirt "I'm a Zionist" was born in Massachusetts.
Oh, you're talking about the person that was outside.
I'm talking about that protest that came. I'm sorry. I just want to show you the section that riled them up.
I think the technical term for him is a get a job, Nick. Yeah.
Oh, so like somebody who shot somebody.
That's crazy. Wait, so he shot somebody so he went to a rally.
Yeah, he organized a rally.
And then there was an altercation there. Someone tackled him and he shot.
Somebody got violent, and I saw the video, and I don't want to defend that guy.
No, it's everyone's asking. You know what? The funniest thing I remember from the protest, we were like a couple blocks away from Columbia. I used to walk by Columbia like all the time. Mm-hmm. Biggest issue. I'm really the victim here because they closed off the gate. You can't walk through it anymore. Yeah. When things were tense and like heightened. You would go out, you'd walk by Columbia, and it was like old people on both sides yelling at each other while these kids were trying to get through. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? When it becomes a
national story.
What?
That's what happens when it becomes a national story.
Yeah, the worst people show up.
Same thing happened in Ferguson. Same thing happened in January 6th. Mm-hmm. The worst fucking people show up.
Yeah. But the thing was, at least on Jan 6th, I got to view the Capitol Rotunda. No, I wasn't there. I was a joke. I was there. You were there?
Yeah, you want to see pictures?
Wait, really? You were at Jan 6th?
As a reporter.
Totally. Did you make it into the Capitol?
I made it into the Capitol.
Oh!
Yeah, it was like, honestly.
Burying the lead here.
People were like, yo, I can't believe you went in there. And I'm like, bro, that's my job.
You have got, oh my God.
So I was just kind of like walking around.
Were you worried that they were going to... Oh my God.
Oh yeah, they were nuts.
Oh my God. For those of you who can't see it, he has literal footage from being inside of the...
Look, I took this picture of like the QAnon. Ow! Remember when QAnon was a thing?
I miss him.
I took this picture. I had a photo of a guy holding the Nancy Pelosi nameplate.
Were you worried that at any point they were going to start arresting people and you were going to get caught up, or were you like, I have a...
Yeah.
Wow.
This is my buddy. He was also a journalist, leaning in and posing with this guy wearing all this tech gear.
Oh my God. Did you know when it was happening? You're like, I am here at maybe one of the most interesting moments in American history.
There was a moment where I leaned into my friend leaned into me, and he was like, make sure you get amazing pictures because this shit is never going to happen again.
Oh, no way.
And I was like, yo, I fucking know.
That is so crazy.
Here's what you don't see. It's like, so the foolishness. This guy was like brushing his teeth in there.
It's so funny. I covered the, what's it called? The inauguration for this like
These
political
guys were,
sports
like,
betting.
looking for Epstein's list.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, yeah. Remember when they went into the Capitol building?
Fuck Antifa sticker, God, ironically.
So funny. Inside, he put up a fuck Antifa picture inside the Capitol.
But like a fuck Antifa, and his whole position was like, because I interviewed people there too.
Yeah.
I was there as a reporter, so I'm talking to people, I'm interviewing people, and one of the dudes was like, "We're not like the leftists. We don't riot." And I'm like looking around, and I'm like, "Wow,
God.
What a quote! Thank you, God, for blessing me with this quote."
That is so effing funny.
Because as a journalist, you're looking for that kind of shit.
Did you go into anyone's offices? Anything like that?
I went into one conference room. I don't think it was an office. No.
Did you get into like the big where Congress sits or anything like that? Yeah.
No, I didn't make it into there.
Oh my God.
I saw people flooding into there, but I think I was more interested in like interviewing people, and so people were kind of shuffling in and out. So I was waiting for people who were like taking a break, sitting down, so I can like talk to them.
Yeah.
There's this one funny video of this person that I interviewed. The funny photo, but she's literally sitting down on the chair, on like the couch or some. Yeah. someone's office, like chanting and shouting.
Ah.
She saw the
She's
camera
just
and she
sitting
was
on
like,
the
"Oh
couch,
yeah." Oh, it was just like,
Oh my God. God, that's cool. That's a story.
it was. It's in the
Did
book.
you sell a lot of pictures of becoming Baba you sell a bunch of copies there
At January 6th?
Yeah,
No, the
January
book
6th.
just came out last week. So that event where the pro-Israel people came to protest me,
Yeah.
that was at a reading. That was like the book came out.
How'd they even
This
find out
indie
about
bookstore. So this particular group, I think this like Stop Antisemitism in Massachusetts or something.
Yeah.
They'd been protesting this bookstore for a while. This bookstore has been there for 5 generations. They're a Jewish family who owns it. This neighborhood has a lot of Jews in it. And so they have been very vigilant since October 7th. And so after October 7th, they noticed that authors were coming in to promote their books, and some of them were Palestinian. One of them was Musa Abu Toha, who wrote a book of Palestinian poetry reflecting on the moment. There's a Hala Elian, also a poet, who was like doing events. But they did all these events virtually because they were getting harassment threats and protest threats and all that stuff. And in response of that, they started to be very aware and conscious about it. And so they started flagging those kinds of books that they thought might attract that kind of protest.
Yeah.
In my case, nobody had flagged my book. So...
Do you feel a little bit insulted?
Insulted?
Yeah, you're like, come on. I just came out with a book. You're not going to flag it at all, guys?
It's a book about parenthood. So it's like 99.9% of this book is about like, how am I going to live up to my own parents' expectations? Oh no, am I inflicting my own kids with the same level of like bullshit expectations?
Yeah.
That's what the book is about.
Yeah.
It's about coming of age and then also having a kid. So no, I was like shocked and surprised, but also like really curious and interested. And I was like, I can't wait to get there and like talk to them. So they, I got this like kind of scary email being like, things have escalated on our end. We were trying to keep you out of the loop. But now we found like this page where they're actually going to organize a protest and they're going to show up. And it's being organized by this guy that was involved in a shooting. And so we just want to give you the option. If you don't want to show up for any reason, we understand. And I was like, no, fuck no, I want to show up. This is my shit. Like, I want to talk to this guy. I want to meet him. And so I get there early. I see all these people. Like, I kind of like scope the bookstore. It's a normal bookstore. Like, yeah, there's like 3 people maybe wearing kufayas. There's also people wearing yarmulkes. I found Alan Dershowitz's book on the shelf, but also found like books about the Palestinian perspective. So like it didn't seem like it was like so activisty or whatever. I'm a parent, so I went to the kids section and I picked up some books about dinosaurs. Yeah. It's a bookstore. Anyways, so then the first guy shows up, Scott Hayes. He's the guy who organized the protest. And so he explained to me, actually a brick got thrown through a window of a kosher deli nearby. And so we have reason to believe that what's happening here at this bookstore where they're inviting all these anti-Semitic authors is actually inciting and making it unsafe for Jewish people here. And so his position is we're here to protect Jewish people. And he's there. And I asked him, I was like, what about my book was the issue? And he was like, no, you don't understand. It's not about you personally. I don't have a beef with you. I'm actually just really upset that this bookstore keeps inviting people who are sympathetic to pro-Palestine and sympathetic to Palestinians. And so he didn't really, he was like this sort of dancing around the edge. He's like, I'm not really even protesting. I'm just here for solidarity with my people, like saying bullshit like this. I had to speak to somebody else. I think her name was Pearl, who was telling me, oh, actually, we know who you are. You're a journalist and you write all this bullshit anti-Semitic stuff. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So like, you just don't like that I report about certain things.
What was the phrase in the book that you said that got them kind of like riled up?
It's not a phrase. It's like a page and a half about what it was like to be a parent of young kids and see young kids who look like them get blown up.
Right.
Okay, it's like 2 pages.
Read
It's like a page
read
and a half. The whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any part that you think is relevant?
Well, I'm going to start here because like the chapter is called "Show Love, Get Love," and it's the final chapter of the book. I write about how. So it begins with 2 kids in 18 months hit us like a tsunami.
You had 2 kids in 18 months?
Yeah, 202.
Jesus.
We settled into a divide and conquer strategy.
You sure you're not a Hasidic Jew? I'm
joking. My wife works in a hospital, and most of her people that she works with are Jewish. And she's like, bro, you will not believe who just came in for her 9th baby.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, don't even say it. So I'm like writing about like being drowsy and kind of out of it. Mita emerged from the bedroom earlier than usual, poured herself a cup of coffee, and added the rest of the pot to her cereal for an extra kick. Talk about how my son was like doing a puzzle, just contextualizing like just the normal everyday shit that was happening on the morning of October 7th. And then as Mita settled in, I pulled up my phone again, only to see something shocking on Instagram. Men stood atop the Israeli tank, and this is true, this is the first image I saw. Men stood atop an Israeli tank, pumping their fists in defiant victory. Quote, "The prisoners have escaped," the caption read, referring to Gaza. It was a stark departure from the usual images of Gaza. Mothers in headscarves and gaunt men enduring a barrage of Israeli missiles razing their cities. I continued to scroll in disbelief, seeing Palestinians bulldozing through Israel's fortified border fence, breaking free from the very barrier that had been deadly to approach during the Great March of Return. The face of Rozen el-Najjar, a volunteer medic shot and killed by Israeli snipers, was fresh on my mind. Watching the wall of their prison topple was heart-wrenching. "Mita, look at this," I said. Mita's the name of my wife. Turning my phone toward her. Each image felt more surreal than the last. Neither of us could comprehend the sight of the improvised flying vehicles or Palestinian incursions into Israeli military outposts. Mita joined me on the couch, holding Noon. With each passing minute, the extent of the havoc on the kibbutzim bordering Gaza became painfully clear. "Have you seen the clip of the girl in the bloodied pants?" Mita asked softly. I nodded. "What the fuck?" she muttered. As I scrolled for updates, a video blaring from my phone, a woman's anguished scream as she was abducted on a motorcycle. The sound caught Musa's attention, and I quickly switched to my phone app, quickly switched to my photo app, letting him browse old videos of himself to shield him from the horror. In the days that followed, Israel launched another bombing campaign, and the media constructed a familiar narrative in real time. American journalists abandoned neutrality, throwing around words like barbaric and evil, branding Palestinians as fanatics driven by hate, without regard for the generations-long militarized occupation they exist under. I knew what was coming, as did any Arab. The pattern was all too familiar. Thousands of defenseless civilians would be horrifically slaughtered by one of the world's most advanced militaries, and their deaths minimized as nameless collateral damage using a grotesque trope of human shields. Grieving their loss would be misconstrued as tacit support for violence. I scrolled my phone insistently, unable to sleep. Night after night, for months, I saw images of babies torn to bits, parents who looked like me, wailing over the unrecognizable remains of their infants. The feed was endless. To reach the news from Gaza, I had to scroll past memes and viral dance clips. Life was carrying on as a massacre unfolded. I wondered if my grief was personal, if I carried only because I was Arab. But no, the world has lost its mind. One video stayed with me, a father in the rubble of the Jabalia refugee camp, fanatically digging through debris with his bare hands, searching for his 3 daughters. Covered in dust, with tears cutting through the dirt of his face, he looked at the sky and thanked God amid his devastation. Alhamdulillah. How could he show gratitude in such a state of ruin, I wondered. It sparked a confusion in me, like a heartbreaking testament of all the ways I fell short both in faith and fatherhood. In another video, 3 young brothers wailed for their father after learning that the grocery store he had entered had been flattened by Israeli airstrikes. Their cries of Baba echoed painfully inside me. President Biden embraced Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu and cast doubt on Palestinian death tolls, saying he had, quote, "no confidence in the number that the Palestinians are using." Hearing that made me sick. Like Palestinians in Gaza, anti-war protesters were cast as violent extremists, which led to arrests, deportations, and job loss. The message was clear. Empathy for Palestinians was criminal. I felt powerless as an Arab American. Somehow, despite fear of becoming a target simply for empathizing with Palestinians, I managed to write. I interviewed a prominent Jewish critic of Israel and a Palestinian political leader with Israeli citizenship, and penned an op-ed about American tolerance for the dehumanization of Palestinians. Unexpectedly, my editor Jeff called me in for a Zoom meeting. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. I hesitated, uncertain if empathizing with Arab suffering would be misinterpreted as a loss of objectivity. "I feel really good, actually," I said, keeping my guard up. And the whole thing goes into this like moment where I feel vulnerable and I don't want to like talk about it with an editor. And then he actually tells me to stop reporting about stuff that's happening in Gaza. But then we reach a compromise. It's his idea. He's like, write about what's happening here. And then he brought to my attention that nobody really reported on that 6-year-old kid. It sort of happened and then it vanished. And so he encourages me to get on the plane and just go to Chicago and see what I can get. And remarkably, I was able to meet directly with the dad, who was nicknamed Abu Wadia, so like father of Wadia.
This was the kid that was stabbed. The mother also?
26 times.
Yeah.
The mother was also stabbed, and nobody knew who the mom was or where she was.
Yeah.
I also interviewed her,
Oh,
and
wow.
to this day, I'm the only person to interview those parents. That's how little people care about it.
Can I say there's a relatability in so much? Like, granted, there's parts of this.
That's all of it. That's as far as I go on it.
No, but that's first of all, you got protested by people who have an issue with any,
With that,
the people that show up to these places. I'm like, you're not here to make this any better. You're here because you like the clicks, and there's and you've got nothing else to do in some capacity. There's no way that you will ever convince me that like going to protest, your book reading in Brooklyn and actually, helps anything. The relatability thing though, that I do think is like maybe the place that we kind of end us on is so much of what you were experiencing after October 7th with like the images and how it kind of like, being a father and looking at your kids and then, the relatability to the father looking through the rubble, all that stuff. I got 2 nephews. One is brand new, was around.
Congrats.
Thank you so much. I am supposed to go hopefully in September to visit them.
Nice.
The other one though was around 1, about the age of the B-Boss kids.
Yeah.
It was a thing where anytime I saw the B-Boss kids inherently, and it's the only time this has ever happened, immediately I would see my nephew's face. There's a relatability here where it was impossible to remove, myself from feeling like what is happening, in Israel. And I think that is like the thing we can relate to, is that we're in America in an incredible place of, of privilege in a lot of ways. Like the fact that it would suck to be over there is for a million different fucking reasons. Whoever you want to blame, whatever, it would suck. But we're here and seeing what's happening there and having that guilt about being here and then not knowing how to reckon it, and also hiding the fact, the comedy community, there's a lot of people that have very extreme views on the stuff that I'm associated with. I've hidden, there was months where I didn't talk about it like too much, where I was very like vague about it. And then I started to be, a little bit more pressing on it. But like that feeling like there was no way to talk about it, all that stuff, this is, I think, like the relatability part to it. At the end of the day, where I think that we've hit to hide portions of ourselves in order to talk about this. It feels like we have to apologize significantly. Zohran, are you talking to the guy that's asking Zohran to apologize the entire time? I bet we relate on that.
Yep.
We've had to apologize for our existence. We've had to apologize for having certain beliefs that we don't think are that crazy, that other people think that we are psychotic or that we want the death of the other person because we have these beliefs. And hopefully, there's a lot of shitty money that's about to get thrown into this election over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
It's about to get real weird to the Jews. It's about to get real weird to the Palestinians.
And mind you, Zohran himself is a victim of Islamophobia.
1,000%. He has got to walk with a fucking security team now because of it. And tell you one thing, Curtis Sliwa, who's the Republican guy, he went out there and he was like, "Oh, he wants to defend the police. He's got to walk with the fucking."
Yeah.
I'm like,
he doesn't want to defund the police.
of course he doesn't. No one actually wants it. It's a lie that is being told to paint this guy as a psychopath in ways that he is not a psychopath. I'm with you 100%. Over the next couple of months, a lot of shitty money is about to get thrown into this. There's a lot of shitty stuff that is about to get said. I'm sure old tweets on everyone's side. Eric Adams just got sued today by a bunch of like former cops for running, who knows, with Cuomo and all that stuff. It is about to be a nightmare. And I think that the way I want to go out of this here is that if there's ever a moment for humanity, if there's ever a moment to acknowledge the other side or anything like that. And I say this as someone that hopefully I'm able in a position to do the same thing. I hope that not you, but I hope that the royal you, I hope that the entire community on both sides here in this moment will at least in some capacity see certain moments where they can try to dampen or try to soften the hatred there. And I hope that is, and if that's the littlest thing we can hope for, then I do hope that we're able to see the tension at least like somewhat like dulled and smoothed over.
Yeah.
Anyways, globalizing intifada. No, I'm joking. No,
Yeah, man. Yeah. And just, Palestine is not the only place where people are suffering, man. It's happening everywhere. I think the emphasis and the focus on Palestine has a lot to do with where the money's coming from. And if it feels like it's coming out of our own pockets, obviously we're going to care a lot more about that issue. Yes. I hope that if people are listening, of the 3 people who listen to this
is on Newsmax, by the way. We stream live to Newsmax.
Yeah, I actually think Dan Bongino is really handsome.
Yeah. God.
I don't know about you, but I voted for Trump.
I actually think that Trump is going to get shot by one of his supporters now over this Epstein stuff.
Shit, yeah. Dude. He's got a fucking...
Dude, what an unforced error.
I mean,
Didn't
it's
have
who
to talk
he is
about
from the
it.
very beginning.
Totally.
It's who he was from the very beginning.
What is it? When does make up a fake list? If I'm him, I would just come out. I would list the 10 people I hate the most and be like, "Oh yeah," and then throw Jared Kushner on there.
Why is Mahmoud Khalil on this list? What's going on?
Oh my God, Marcia Gay was on Epstein's Island. I can't believe that the president of SUNY.
Whoopi Goldberg.
This is crazy. Rosie O'Donnell, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine on a flight log.
Damn.
You know, this is maybe the thing that will take him. Anyways, thank you so much for coming out. I really hope that this was fun. We don't get, there's not enough of this stuff that happens. I think people get too tense with each other. You know,
it's really tense because there's a lot of violence right now in people's minds and people's feeds. Every day to this day, I wake up to another massacre, and so I'm gonna feel a type of way about it. I have enough brain cells. I have 2 brain cells to put together to know like who's responsible and who isn't. The enemy's not here; it's out there, and anybody who pulls the trigger or like votes for Netanyahu or believes that Palestinians have brought this upon themselves is not on the side of humanity, and not the kind of side that I want to be on. That being said, as a journalist and as a reporter, my primary mode and function is to seek out the truth. And I feel like I found a partner in that. So
oh man, I appreciate it.
I think that's where we can like.
Hopefully, in a couple of months, come back on here. Let's hope this becomes a regular thing. Yeah, that's where we go. You know, I'm telling you right now, Palestine will be free. What day is it now? July 17th.
Yep.
September 14th.
Yeah.
Palestine's free.
Yep.
Guaranteed. All right, guys.
Or your money back, guaranteed.
Do me a favor. Plug your book. Where can people find you? Give me all that
It's
stuff.
called Becoming Bubba. You can buy it anywhere where books are sold. There's also an audiobook that I recorded in my entire voice.
Ooh.
And so if you want to hear the story of Aymann Ismail and the voice of Aymann Ismail, you should definitely do that.
Check that out.
The book, I know we're talking about Palestine and Israel. This book is not about that. I had to mention it because of what I was feeling when I was writing it. But this book is a reflection of what it's like to become a parent. And I wrote it as I became a parent. I started writing it when my baby was born, which is sort of a self-fumble because it's harder to write with one hand than with 2.
Yeah.
But I was able to pull it off, and I'm really proud of it. And I think when people read it, they will hopefully relate to it no matter where they come from. You don't have to be Muslim or Arab to relate to this book. You just have to have a heart. And that's what I wrote.
This is a complete stretch because this is not at all Muslim. Have you ever seen Meet the Patels at all? That documentary about
I meant Meet the Fockers.
No, Meet the Fockers was a documentary about anger management. No, there was an interesting movie called Meet the Patels that was about how like when Indian people like from India when they date they have those like bio data that like those like resumes. Do you know what I'm talking about at all? You know, there's like a whole thing where
I
it's
haven't
like,
seen it.
Okay, you have to see this thing. This was a huge moment of relatability. There's a thing out there called biodata, where if you got like an Indian kid and you want him to marry, an Indian woman, you go out there and you say like, here's the resume, and then you send it around to all the matchmakers.
And it's your DNA?
They just call it biodata, where it's just, I don't know why they call it that, but it's like
a resume.
It's literally a resume that just goes around. I'm
You
watching
don't,
this.
pluck a hair and put it in a bag, dude.
That's 23andMe. That's the Mormons. The Mormons, though, they do all that stuff. But there was this Meet the Patels thing, and then they have this biodata thing, and I'm watching this. I'm like, holy shit! The Jews, they're called shidduch resumes. It's the exact same thing. It even is formatted the same. You got the picture on the top left, and then you got where they went to college, and then all of their accolades on it. We're all the same person. At the end of the day, all of the ethnic moms in every single religion, in every single,
are an amazing people. What a fucking phenomenal history.
I'm just saying that all the moms, all they care about is just getting their kids married, no matter what religion, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, that is it.
But this like project of like an ethno-state needs to end, and the sooner it happens, the better humanity will be off. And I think honestly, all of the biggest, like who do I think is like doing the best to fight anti-Semitism right now?
Yeah.
You already know. It's all the Jews who are showing up to those protests who are saying, no, not in my name. When that protest showed up, somebody interrupted me while I was doing an interview with one of the protesters to talk to them and was like, I'm born in Israel. I'm Israeli Jew. How could you defend what's happening over there?
But doesn't this kind of come back where like if the protests were kind of just like, if the tent was a little bit bigger, I think that you would see a lot more support.
The people in the tent are not dropping the bombs.
But I'm not dropping the bomb either. I'm not dropping the bomb.
If you want those kids to stop, you got to stop killing those kids.
But that's not on me. That's
it's
not on
you.
some
You're
kid.
Right.
But
no,
it's not on some kid.
I'm
and
not
I do
talking
think,
about
but I'm saying this like, I can see a future where the bombs are stopping to get dropped way quicker if the tent is bigger. And that's, again, because right now it's not working.
So the people who can stop the bombs will only stop killing children if the tent on Columbia campus is a little bit bigger.
No, I think that if the government was able to not be like,
the government is
they're I agree. Let me just follow me with this.
Okay.
If you were able to take away that argument in some small capacity, I think you would see more people you would see, Chuck Schumer say what he is, having him at these rallies would be incredible. Hakeem Jeffrey, or whatever it is, more support, but government support. What
you're arguing is the reason why Palestinian children are being starved, deprived of water, and bombed is because this tent is just a little bit too small.
No. I'm arguing
that they won't be able to justify killing these children.
Yes.
Bullshit.
Yes. Bullshit. 1,000%. This is all this. Yes.
It's bullshit.
100. I agree. But also, I do think that
they're killing those kids,
even if it's
not because of what's happening on college.
But
campus.
you're going to see a larger push against this. If there's more people, I do think you're going to see a larger push against that. Maybe that's where we disagree on.
I can't imagine there's somebody in the world right now who is looking at kids being killed and going like, I wish I can support something or speak up for those kids. But, I saw a video of this kid getting bullied and beat up, and therefore I don't give a shit about Palestinian kids.
Give a shit, but there's a motivation to handle the problem versus running away from it. Totally. I'll give you part of that as an excuse, but I do think that part of this is a real thing where you're having people that don't have an ability to show up and to be part of these spaces because they do feel uncomfortable. And I do think that the more people you bring into that, the more there is a chance that the bombs stop getting dropped on the other side if you bridge build to the other side versus digging in.
I think ultimately, if there is a shared identity, if there's a shared definition for the word Zionism, we can get there. I think right now there's a lot of confusion as to what that term means. I think for a lot of Jewish people, it means one thing. For a lot of people who are Palestinian or pro-Palestine, Zionism means something entirely different. Mm-hmm. Solve that problem, and the tent will immediately explode and get bigger.
But it will never. But the thing is, it will never go.
But that
direction.
Also, it has nothing to do with getting people not supporting Palestine. People don't support Palestine because they think that if the Palestinians got an inch, they will carry out a genocide and kill all the Jews in the world, which is bullshit. And
but I think that there is a significant portion of people that don't feel that way, that do want to go out there and support, but do feel uncomfortable because of, the extremeness of it.
I wish they would go and check it out for themselves.
Here's what. Okay, maybe this is where we agree on.
Okay.
Or this is the line. I think it does make a difference, and you think it doesn't make a difference in ending the war faster. That's the difference between us.
I think what's coming out, the images coming out of the war and what's happened so far, and the massacre after massacre after massacre, ambulances getting blown up and buried in the sand, healthcare workers being targeted, the director of the Al-Shifa hospital being taken to prison, and God knows what was happening to him there. The fact that there's systemic rape. There's a guy who died because they stuck a hot rod in his ass and he died.
Yeah, it's bad.
This is happening to Palestinians. So the idea that somebody's like, wow, I see that and I empathize with the Palestinians, but I'm not going to say anything.
But feel uncomfortable showing up because they've been targeted for their religious identity for the past 650 days? Yeah, that exists. That's a lot of people who...
That needs to be solved yesterday.
What?
That needs to be solved yesterday.
Totally.
That's a shame.
But the thing is the way to solve that is to expand the tent and not make it so toxic for such a large group of people. There are people out there that just don't show up because they feel rightfully uncomfortable in these spaces. That is, it is a thing. You can think it's a good enough reason or not, but it is a thing out there. So regardless if you think it's a good enough reason or not, the idea that it exists is still there. So it does need to be
it just comes off as an excuse. It's like, honey, I would have went and got the groceries.
I can tell you right now, there are so many protests that I would have showed up for physically. And I'll tell you off camera, who I donate my money to or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would be way more vocal about it if there wasn't, this baggage that gets brought along with it where there is valid concern from how conduct, for supporting.
Did any of what we read assuage any of those feelings? The
And
fact that they were they've got marshals and peacekeepers, and they had these like education sessions where they were trying to teach people about anti-Semitism.
I'm gonna be honest.
That doesn't do anything.
Only because, one, it was from an article where hearing what the author had said made me think it wasn't like the most biased thing. It's a ChatGPT prompt that I did not look into more. And I just want to point out, if that was May 2024, things did not get better in 2025. So I question it. Either they weren't doing anything and they were or either they weren't doing anything and they were saying they were doing something and they didn't, and then, nothing improved, or their tactic for fixing it did not work. And that's another issue that needs to, or
maybe your media diet has something to do with it? I don't know.
No, because I've met these kids. Yeah. If I didn't physically meet these kids, if I didn't a lot of people, when they think about violence and campus and stuff like that, it's a little bit of an ethereal, it's this idea of it out there, and I'm sure in the beginning of it definitely took me a minute to catch on is the wrong term, but it took me a minute to be the Palestinian protesters are getting targeted on their side. And it took a minute to realize that, to understand that, that is a thing. I think that there is another side to this of it was really bad for Jewish kids.
Anti-Semitism as an idea is being used to stop the protests because people are they don't want the kids to protest.
Yes, and it was only and the only reason they were able to do that is because the protest went too far, and you gave them an inch and they took a mile.
Do you remember that video of that girl who claimed to have been poked, to have her eye poked
out? But this is diminishing and devaluing actual concerns. This stuff really happened.
Fair.
I met some of these kids.
I only brought that as an example to say that real events are not the only thing. That aren't the only example of anti-Semitism being used. It's also fake.
Yes, but I think that also diminishes actual issues.
Yes, it does.
And in a way where it's it doesn't give us a chance to, it doesn't give us a chance to address it, because the argument then is it happened. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. Stuff has been happening. Stuff has been bad.
Right.
It's been bad. It's been bad for both sides, in their own specific beautiful ways. Right. Hopefully things change. I think it'll change.
In our lifetime.
In our lifetime. Hopefully in our lifetime it changes. Anyways, this has been the longest podcast by a mile. I got
to go to dinner.
Yeah, it is 5:59 here. This has been the New York Times. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. By the way, official dates, we are going off to Philadelphia. I think October... Huge about that. Philadelphia, October 20th. Boston, I think this November 20th or something. We're doing something with the Allgemeiner magazine. They're going to be paying for a comedy tour. More information is going to be coming out about that really soon, but the links are going to be going up in a week or two, so definitely check that out. Until then, I will see you later.
Buy this book.
Becoming Baba
Vote with your dollar.
Vote with your dollar, and that's how, don't even vote. Just buy this book.
Save the children.
There it is. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.